Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm doing a recording on December 6th. We're going to go over some of the news. Please help support the work that I do. All these videos are for free. You can support by sharing the links, asking your social media to follow me. I have many different channels that you can follow me on. YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble, Substack, TikTok, Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, X, GETTR. All the links are in the description of this video. Please click those links and subscribe. Help support the work that I do. You can also be a paid member to my Patreon channel or my Substack channel. All these videos are for free. I don't put stuff behind a paywall, but it's through the support of those different platforms that helps with the free content that I produce. You can also donate on my website. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee. It's a great way to help support. But please share the links and ask your social media to follow me. With that said, I also have great products on my store. I have ebooks, supplements, and course material on immunology and pulmonology that you can learn from. You can learn a lot about the pulmonary system and your immune system for only $25. By doing that, you're reducing the power imbalance between your physician and yourself, and you're learning about how the body's working. There's lots of PDFs and lots of videos if you purchase those modules on immunology or pulmonology. You can log in as many times as you want. You get a unique password, and you can learn at your own pace. It's a great way to learn about the immune system and the pulmonary system. Now, with that, let's talk about just a couple products before we start going into the video. This video is from Adam Walker. He used to be a professor at Harvard. He has the interesting concept about a new renaissance that I think is important to dive into. Please go to my store, get the Max 35. Max 35 is 35 parts per million. Cleanse is 30 parts per million. They're at different price points. You take them the same way. Take a teaspoon a day, every day, either one of these. Swish it in your mouth, gargle, 20 seconds or 30 seconds, and then swallow it. When you do that, you're improving your oral pharynx, your oral cavity. You're improving your mucosal lining, and you are improving your epithelial cells. So you're boosting up your immune system. This is important to take every day. If you're not feeling well, take a tablespoon or two a day. Or if someone around you is not feeling well, take it prophylactically. And that way you are mitigating any potential issue. But take it every day. I've been doing this protocol for over 5 years, every day. Teaspoon a day. If I'm not feeling well, take a tablespoon or two a day. And then go back to your maintenance dose when everything's all clear. You can also get structural nano silver soaps, very high quality, that help with the health of your skin. You can get lavender and peppermint, or charcoal tea tree and lemongrass. So get this structural nano silver soaps. Get them as gifts. Get some supplements as gifts. It's the holiday season. It's important to start getting healthy. I'm telling you how to slow down the aging process and boost up your immune system. If you do this regularly, you're going to improve your health. So please go to my store and get the structural nano silver soaps, the Max 35 or the Cleanse, and take them every day. Use them every day. All right, let's go and listen into this concept that Adam Walker has about a new renaissance.
Is when the closed circles break open. And I've been writing about the prospect of the next Renaissance, a revival of the arts and literature. I've been writing about this on my Substack essays, and I've recently spoken about it on YouTube here on this channel. But if the next Renaissance is going to happen, and I think it will, or it can rather, it's going to require a complete cultural reorientation of our relationship to the world and creativity. So I want to introduce one of the things that it will require of us. And this will include some new directions for my teaching in 2026. So during this past year, in 2025, the themes of my courses on Versed and on YouTube was enchantment. How can we use literature to reinvent the worlds we live in on an individual level? And we did this by asking how can some forms of art, some forms of reading transform daily life into something creative, something spiritually meaningful? But in 2026, my courses on Versed and my content on YouTube and Substack are all going to center around the literature of Renaissance movements. And these are moments in history where the circles break open. So it's not just the European or the Italian Renaissance, but other movements, which include the Romantic revival of the 18th century, which did really break open a very materialistic understanding of the world. There was the American Renaissance, which was started by Emerson, Thoreau, and Margaret Fuller. There was also the modernist movement, which I consider a revival of the spirit in the revolt against form, properly understood with some qualification. But largely that's what the modernist movement was before, in the mid-20th century, sinking back down into a period of closed circles. So I'm defining a Renaissance moment in history as any moment when the static closed circles of culture break open into an upward growth, into an ascending spiral. This is going to start on the individual level before it's culturally collective. Many people are trapped within closed circles. They move along the narrow orbits of obligation, expectation, ambition, and now mindless entertainment in a way that they never have before. Or to an extent to which they never have before. There is a sort of desperate comfort in resigning oneself to an unconscious closed cycle. It's comfortable, it's expected. All the great writers of history, though, were wary of these closed circles. Henry David Thoreau had called it simply desperation, this surrendering to despair, underlying the duty of society and entertainment of daily life. In his great work, Walden, he wrote that some people lead lives of quiet desperation. Of course, the word desperation shares a root with the word despair. It's very key for Thoreau. Thoreau's life can be seen as a series of successful experiments to break himself from the closed circles of Concord, the closed circles of New England society, his abolitionism, his education theory, his explorations into Maine and on Cape Cod, his studies on nature. His 2 years at Walden Pond was really just one breaking open of the circle, its most famous one, but there were several among many experiments. And Thoreau knew that within closed circles, a life will run its unconscious course around a fixed point until it expires. And these closed circles are now being fashioned by algorithms, by AI, by the market. And
Thoreau sounds like he's describing poetically what we call a chaotic attraction in chaos theory.
People are really consumed in these circles today in a way that's entirely exploitative. But the image of the closed circle is not from Thoreau. I actually borrow it from Valentin Tomberg, who was an Estonian Catholic mystic who described the closed circle as a kind of prison. He puts it in this parabolic retelling of the cosmic myth of creation and the fall. His concept is that in the 6 days of creation, there was a circle, but the Sabbath, the seventh day, was the opening of the circle into the spiral. And his recasting of the fall, in this sense, was that the serpent bites its own tail and closes the circle. And so now the world is perpetually at odds against the closed circles and the open circles of freedom. However you look at it, though, this closed circle can be applied to many different things. You think about it. Your spirit is always running. It's always changing. It spins around an orbit, around your daily life. And what many do not realize is that the world is constantly trying to narrow that orbit. The world, broadly speaking, includes the forces of materialism, ideology, consumerism, individualism, and mindless entertainment. It's really a catch-all for any force that wants to narrow your orbit and to enslave your spirit to its own interests. The world of nature, or nature itself, is very different from the world. But the lie of the world is that your spiritual desires can be satisfied by more purchases, by media, by entertainment, by AI friendship. It's all very bleak and dystopic where we're headed. And you can see the closed circles just being exploited there as a way of harvesting information and attention. But like Rilke's panther, and I have a lecture on Rilke in which I talk about this, Rilke's panther is this panther in a cage in the zoo in the Jardin de Paris, the Paris gardens that he sees there. He's also inspired by a small statue. But it's a trapped animal. And there's inside of us a very powerful focal point that intuits the lie of the world, that recognizes the confines of the cage. And every now and then, we can encounter something that widens our radius, that breaks open the circle, that transforms it from a two-dimensional enclosure to a three-dimensional ascending spiral. When we are acted upon something higher, something outside of us, and our spirits are lifted out by another gravitational field, when we become aware of forces greater and more important than the ones that seek to control us, and for a brief moment we break free from the endless closed circle. This is what some theologians call a conversion, or what it's called in religion as a conversion. And sometimes we break free of the circle forever. In moments like these, we become ourselves, or we draw nearer to ourselves. Our transformation begins to widen according to our own spirits. It's the swinging open of a prison door. It's the moment when a seedling breaks free from the shell of an acorn that begins to grow according to its true self, moving ever closer to the oak tree that it will one day become, and in a way already contains within. So this is what I mean by the spiral. Because what is a renaissance other than a moment when a culture's two-dimensional circle violently breaks open into a three-dimensional ascending spiral, when the enslaving forces of the world are overpowered by a vitality that is creative and spiritual and has this gravitational field that's greater than those of the world. So in upcoming essays, I'll further elaborate on these opportunities. I think there are several things that the next Renaissance will require of us in order to usher it in. But for now, it is enough to say that each of those moments will require openness and receptivity. We must be willing to have our closed circles broken, and that means putting ourselves into moments of beauty, into the paths of beauty, to have art and literature before our eyes and our consciousness daily, and to resist the mindless consumerism of entertainment and of purchasing things online. Emily Dickinson has a beautiful poem, "The soul should always stand ajar, that if heaven inquire, he will not be obliged to wait, or shy of troubling her. Depart before the host have slid the bolt unto the door, to search for the accomplished guest, her visitor no more." It's a beautiful poem, and it's partly inspired, I always thought, from the Song of Songs, chapter 3. But it's all about keeping the door open. Now, Charles Taylor, who's a modern philosopher, in his book, The Secular Age, and his newer one, Cosmic Consciousness, talks about the porous self versus the buffered self. And I find this concept very helpful. The buffered self is one that's very closed. The porous is the one that's open. But you have to have a mind that will leave the door open for the heavenly visitors, who will often be very inconvenient to entertain. I mean, consider how inconvenient it is to keep an open door. Heaven will not honor the clock, much less your schedule, so you must be willing to entertain angels at all times. But heaven will call, oftentimes at the most convenient times, and you have to be ready to entertain the guest. And breaking the closed circle may involve your breaking your routine to place yourself within the presence of beauty and art. It's going to require a lot of effort, and the one who would live the life of the ascending spiral must needs maintain careful receptivity and openness. We must have what Wordsworth called a heart that watches and receives. When your days are filling up with emails, phone calls, paperwork, meetings, or worse, TikTok and Reels, stop and make sure that your door is ajar. We must not give heaven any reason to depart before it blesses us. And this is the life of the spiral. The life of the spiral acknowledges that daily life is intimately bound up with spiritual life. I was talking to a monk one time who told me, I was talking about spiritual life and daily life, and he said the two are inseparable. You shouldn't think of the spiritual life, because spiritual life is life. And that really changed the way I saw things, because the two really are inextricable. And once you see that, you begin to see how insidious the forces of the world are, of buying things on Amazon, of filling waking hours with podcasts or video content. The human life should be more porous. And there's nothing wrong with content that actually inspires you to move away from the closed circles. Oftentimes, these are moments where you're opening yourself up to new possibilities, to becoming more porous. You just also have to maintain a healthy sovereignty over your own intellectual domain, in which you allow certain moments to consume, sometimes to passively consume if you need be, but you need to be in control of those moments. You need to be porous to the common graces of nature, not so much porous to the forces of the world. That the life of the ascending spiral is so countercultural to our moment makes it all the more important, and it does make it more dangerous. You can imagine what will happen in the next 10 years if this were to take place. If too many people break the closed circles, the market will have to adapt in new ways of enslavement. But if the next Renaissance is going to happen, our lives must move according to the ascending spiral. And the next Renaissance will require a spiritual vitality powerful enough to combat the opioids of entertainment and the ills of consumerism and philosophical materialism. And it's going to require artists and readers to imagine a new orientation to the traditions of literature. Something I'm doing on Versed right now is, I started out by being very academic, and let's do this as much like a university classroom as we can, where we study the fossils of poetry. But now I'm thinking that relationship to the canon, which is purely studious, is not sufficient to bring about the Renaissance. We need the permission to drive one's plow over the bones of the dead, as William Blake once wrote. There is a certain reverence one must have and a certain studiousness in reading the classics and the great works of literature, because they will teach us how to write, but that's exactly what they're there for. Every work of good literature came in at the right moment in time in relation to the past and the past's literature. We have to do the same thing. So it's going to require us to rediscover the inheritance of the Romantic movements, specifically the power of the imagination, which we have lost. There's a lot of talk about, how interesting it is to talk about the Romantic imagination. And I've done this myself. I've treated it very academically, as though it were a theory fossilized in literary history. But no, this is actually a way of life. This is actually something that feeds us spiritually. And for many years, I spent my journey in the academy on a spiritual journey to kind of incorporate that. But there's a cognitive dissonance of treating these ideas as something static, like fossils, and experiencing them and practicing them as much as a botanist would go out and see actual living ferns. There's a difference between studying fossils and studying actual flowers and plants. So this is what it will ask of us. We need to see art and literature as icons or as thresholds or windows into other worlds. It's going to require more than just an academic understanding of culture, but rather a new form of study that makes new creation permissible. So that's why in 2026, I'll be offering lectures and courses on texts from moments of Renaissance, these Renaissance moments. So the schedule is pretty loose. I haven't firmly set down everything from the beginning, so I have the freedom to change it and adapt it to the interests of my students. But we will be studying literature from the great cultural revivals of the past. We'll read some philosophy and poetry, might study Plotinus and John Donne's love poetry. We might study the Corpus Hermeticum and its influence on Henry Vaughan's poetry. We might study the Cambridge Platonists and Thomas Traherne. We'll study William Blake, Samuel Taylor Coleridge's theory of the imagination, Wordsworth's poetry, Byron's Childe Harold. We'll read some Shelley. We'll also read Emerson, definitely his 1836 essay, Nature, which really set in motion the American Transcendentalist movement and the American Renaissance. We'll also read Virginia Woolf and maybe James Joyce to understand how modernism, how that movement is partly a revival of spirit against form and takes part in the breaking open of the closed circles from the Victorian period. And these courses are going to help you get nearer to the great works of literature themselves, and they're going to give you permission to go on and break your own closed circles. So I'll post more information about the future courses under the theme of the Renaissance shortly. But until then, thanks for watching, and until next time.
Another morning to see whether crunchy nooks and
All right,
crannies
so
that's
Adam Walker producing course material on the new Renaissance. Now, let me just do a critique. I haven't done any of his course material, but I do watch his podcast once in a while. What is interesting that I'm noticing on podcasts, on YouTube, not so much on Rumble, but on YouTube, where there's an intellectualness that's starting to emerge. Self-learning of the humanities, of the liberal arts. I think what is happening is that mankind is starting to lose its bearing of what it means to be human, what it means to be a human being instead of a human doer. So there are ones that are intellectual, ones that have some time, are starting to invest in their own self-development through learning the classics, through understanding these different periods of time where you had the Greek philosophers and then the fall of the Greek philosophers. Then you had the rise of Rome and then the Roman Republic and then the Roman Empire, and they brought in some or many of the discoveries, philosophical inquiries from Greece into Rome. And then the fall of the Roman Empire, you go into this feudalism, you have this fracturing of Europe, and then slowly, as they get out of the Dark Ages, this Renaissance. Then you have, the Enlightenment, and then after the Enlightenment, you have this modernism and then postmodernism. And that's a broad brush of what's going on there. Now, he was talking about a new Renaissance because of these circles, these social circles, these gravitational pulls in our lives right now where we're in our own little bubble. Mostly through social media, but also through work and whatever. The question is it really a new Renaissance? Is it a neo-Renaissance or is it a neo-Enlightenment? I'm not so sure, all right? I can understand why he was saying, okay, there's these, during the Dark Ages, you had the fracturing of Europe, you had different kingdoms, the means of transportation were the speed of a horse, right? Roadways weren't as well kept versus the Roman Empire. Safe of passage was less in the Dark Ages versus the Roman Empire. So you did have this fracturing and these bubbles of influence. your own little circle of your world, of what you experienced, because you're attached to a certain kingdom. So that's the Dark Ages, right? The age of feudalism. Plus, in that, there was a heavy dose of religiousness. You know, once the Catholic Church ended up having more power, and you start moving into the Dark Age, it was very heavy dose of religion within the society. So it was the church, it was your king, it was the land that you are tilling for the kingdom, right? So that was life for hundreds of years. And you slowly get out of that, right? And there's this Renaissance. You start seeing that there's the art starts to develop. Sculptures start to develop. Going back almost to what was known during the Greeks. It was almost a rediscovery of the Greeks and then taking it further. This is the time of there's different periods of the Renaissance. You have the early Renaissance and the late Renaissance. But in the early Renaissance, you're talking about Da Vinci. You're talking Michelangelo. In the late era of the Renaissance, we're talking about Descartes. So you're talking mathematics. But they all had still an affinity to religion. They all had a strong affinity to. If you listen to the philosophers of the time of the Renaissance, you're talking about people that were still having a spiritual component to their religion, a spiritual component to their philosophy, heavy connection to religion. So, okay, and then you have the Enlightenment, where as the Renaissance starts to peter out, you start getting into more scientific discovery. And Descartes it was really important. He was the bridge. He was almost the mezzanine. The reason being is that he was part of the Renaissance, but he was also part of the Enlightenment. All right, and at least that's how I take it. And through spatial positioning, using the Cartesian coordinate system, it starts off towards Newton. It moves closer to calculus. It moves closer to physics and scientific discovery. And this is where the Enlightenment starts to happen. You have Voltaire, and you have John Locke, and you have Newton. You know, and there's these different scientific discoveries that start to pile up. So Galileo is another one. All right. So you have this Enlightenment, and we've been following through that thread of the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, and then we had this modernism and postmodernism, and now we have a dumbification of the society, and we're living in these clusters again. All right. But the thing is are we in a neo-Enlightenment? Or are we in a neo-Renaissance? And I don't think it's fully determined if we're in a neo-Enlightenment or a neo-Renaissance. You know, I can make a case for either. Let's say we're in a Dark Age. All right, where individuals are being dumbified. Once the Roman Empire started to crumble, you were slowly losing engineering skills. You were slowly losing social cohesion. You were slowly losing the cohesion of the society of the empire. It started fracturing, and then it went back to an agrarian culture with very little understanding of engineering. So, all right, so it went to a dark age, and then to get out of that dark age, you had a renaissance. Are we in a dark age? If so, then there is going to be a neo-renaissance. Or are we in an enlightenment where we still have this heavy dose of experimentation, scientific discovery, but have lost some sort of humanism? So it's a little different than the linear progression between the Renaissance and the Enlightenment. So are we in a neo-enlightenment? Maybe. You know, especially when we start looking at AI, developing AI. See, we're developing things in the society, either passively or aggressively. Passively meaning asking questions on a chat bot that builds knowledge, or aggressively by building the frontier models or building AI systems for your company or for your research. So there's a passive building of the AI and an aggressive aspect of building the AI. But we're building the AI. Everybody's building the AI. So when we build the AI, are we losing our humanity? Are we losing our jobs? Are we losing our ability for self-determination of our life? We may be out of work. How do you pay your bills? What does that mean in terms of military weaponry? So we are maybe not so much in a dark age that needs an enlightenment, even though we are in our little clusters. I'm sorry, a dark age, let me rephrase that. We're in our clusters, so maybe we're in a dark age and we need a new renaissance. Or is it that we are in our own clusters, building a high-tech, technocratic society, and we need a new enlightenment, where there's almost a rebirthing of humanity? I'm not so sure. I understand the point he's making, where society was fractured post-Roman Empire. You're in a dark age and you go through a renaissance. And it's the learning the arts and the humanities and all that. But you also had, as scientific discovery was starting to take hold in the Enlightenment, and capitalism was starting to take hold, and being industrious and hardworking, and this idea that it was life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or the life, liberty, and property, that wasn't so much a Renaissance concept. That was more of an Enlightenment concept. So if we're looking for shedding the slavery of AI off, shedding the shackles of AI from our lives, that seems to me more of an enlightenment, a neo-enlightenment, than a neo-renaissance. So I'm not sure. Now, maybe I'm splitting hairs here, but I think this is an important concept, because postmodernism has destroyed many of the ideals that were coming out of the Enlightenment. So does it make more, are we closer to a Renaissance, or are we closer to an Enlightenment? We're away from the Enlightenment. We're away from the Renaissance. But which one are we closer to? I would say that we're closer to an Enlightenment, even though we have deviated through the fracturedness of psychology with Freud, the fracturedness of postmodern philosophy where anything goes, this relativism. So I would say that we need a neo-enlightenment, not so much a neo-renaissance. That's my take on it. All right, with that, let's continue. All right, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a look at some of the news here. It's okay, we're gonna play Turley on Fox News here. And also, yeah, we're gonna play Turley on Fox News. But before we do, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the magnesium and zinc and the vitamin C and magnesium. Magnesium and zinc will boost up your immune system and help with your brain function. Vitamin C and magnesium will help with your skin, your immune system, and your brain function. Take them together. This is super important to take to slow down the aging process. But also during the winter season, you're going to need this. Take it every day. Go to my store and get the very high quality supplements. Get the vitamin D3. This is dual purpose. It's going to help to get rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis if they're infected. Vitamin D3 is a cofactor for gene expression, and vitamin D3 helps to absorb calcium. That's going to help with bone density if you do resistance training. And I also have very high quality deodorants that are dual purpose. Use it as a daily deodorant, but it helps you to detoxify your body. It has essential oils from the Himalayas, all natural ingredients. This is very high quality. Use it as a daily deodorant and detoxify your body. You can get it in citrus or in peppermint, lavender, and tea tree. This is for males and females, very high quality deodorants.
Beast in the financial world. It's not the boom. That's
And we're going to bring in Jonathan Turley now, our constitutional law attorney and GW law professor and Fox News contributor. Jonathan, interested to get your take on all of this as the FBI director, Kath Patel, says the reason that they have found the suspect and gotten to the bottom of this case is because of new leadership. He said this investigation was stalled for ongoing for 5 years. He said, we rebuilt it from scratch. We ran every lead. We tested every piece of evidence, brought in top experts, deployed new technology to engineer the break that finally nailed the suspect. He said that's the result of outstanding work. It wasn't new evidence. It was just new leaders. Jonathan, your thoughts?
I thought the most fascinating aspect of the press conference was the statement that this was a case built from old bricks, that they didn't find anything new. And that really the key was there all along and was simply overlooked. We'll see if that bears out, but it would be an indictment, obviously, of the prior administration if that proved to be true. You have to commend this administration. They pledged that they were going to run this guy down, and they believe that they have done so. You know, one thing as a criminal...
No, this Brian Cole Jr., he's black. Most likely, now you got to remember what was going on when Biden came into office. BLM. And they wanted BLM to raise havoc. Now think about this for a second. If they released Brian Cole Jr. during the Obama administration, the Biden administration, during the Biden administration, let me go back and rephrase it because I think I said Obama. I always keep on getting Obama and Biden because Obama was Biden. You know, Biden's administration was the Obama administration. So Biden wins the election in 2020. What happened under Biden's administration? BLM, the riots. Can you imagine? Now you got to remember, they wanted to demonize and create this whole situation where people are buying into the oppressor and the oppressed, and they wanted to push for reparations and all this stuff, right? Do you think that they were going to release the pipe bomber during the Biden administration, during the BLM riots? Of course not. Of course not.
Defense attorney, I can tell you is that a lot of these investigations are somewhat speculative as they try to narrow who might be involved. Once they nail a suspect, a lot of the case comes together at that point because you then have someone who may match the weight, the height, the age, that you were looking for. And so as you zero in on these individuals, you begin to have these aha moments where all these boxes seem to be checked. And then, of course, in a search, you could potentially find something truly incriminating. But they are to be commended, as frustrating as it is for all of us, to be very cautious. You know, they brought the correct charge here in the use of an explosive device in interstate commerce. That gives you the federal footprint that you need. It's a placeholder. They're going to bring more charges. But what you want to do is you want to start with that modest, clearly established crime in your view. There's no rush. And then you want to add charges as your evidence comes in. They're being very cautious and very deliberative, and that makes the most powerful case that you can bring.
You know, Professor, we don't really know much about Brian Cole at this point, other than he's 30 years old and he allegedly planted 2 pipe bombs, one at the RNC and one at the DNC. And when we look at charges against him, obviously, use of an explosive device or creation of an explosive device could be one. But because Kamala Harris was going to the DNC and apparently either walked right by or drove right by that pipe bomb, could you possibly see them bringing a charge of attempted assassination of the Vice President of the United States?
They could, depending on the evidence, but I promise you, they're going to pile on these charges, everything short of ripping a label off a mattress. Anything that they can pile on this guy, they're going to. I mean, this is the type of case where the Department of Justice truly believes in overkill. They're going to pile on those charges as long as they have a basis for it. The most obvious charge was being alluded to in the press conference, that you had various speakers referring to how he terrorized the city and caused terror among the citizens. And those repeated references obviously raise the obvious charge that he can be charged with terrorism. These explosive device charges often bring a 10-year, sometimes 20-year sentence. When you're in the terrorism area, then you're looking at life or more serious types of sentencing. And much of us are just fascinated by what was found in those dusty files. That's why a lot of folks have been focusing on those shoes. Because even though that's 25,000 or so people in the area with those shoes, that's actually a smaller group than the group they were looking at. Mm-hmm. And we have had major cases in history that have had that happen. You have Nathan Leopold in the Leopold and Loeb case was broke because his glasses were somewhat unique. So we'll be waiting to see how that played out.
Okay. Jonathan, just remarkable developments all around. Took a while, but they got there. Thanks, Jonathan, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Professor. We'll keep following this.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page.
All right, let's listen into Dad Saves America. This is actually a pretty good podcast.
My energy bill dropped from $150 to $50 by doing this. My friends laughed at me when I spent $49 on a power saver device that could cut my energy bill in half. They thought,
hey there, friends, fans. But just keep in mind, I think the Biden administration, God, I need to stop doing it. The Biden administration, I'm sure, knew that Brian Cole was a serious suspect and they didn't want to take it further. I'm positive about that. I'm positive because it didn't fit the narrative. If it was a white dude, it would be all over the news during the Biden administration. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Myotrol. Myotrol helps with gene expression to build muscle and to maintain muscle. If you're 40 years of age, male or female, it's hard for you to gain muscle and maintain muscle. It's called atrophy. This has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans to help build muscle. Do some resistance training, take the Myotrol. If you are an athlete, younger or older, you will benefit from taking Myotrol. It'll help with the strength of your sport. Omega-3. Omega-3 will help with your cardiovascular health. It'll help to bring down the LDL levels, increase your HDL levels, reduce the red blood cells from sticking so you're not overclotting, and it's bringing down inflammation. And by doing that, you're improving your cardiovascular health. Super important. And when you improve your cardiovascular health, you'll have better blood flow to your brain, so you're helping with your neurons too. please go to my store and get the omega-3. And if you're 40 years of age or older, take vitamin B complex. Vitamin B complex, the first 4 B vitamins helps with the electron transport chain within your mitochondria, so you're boosting up your energy levels, building up ATP. Vitamin B complex helps with the cellular metabolism, and vitamin B complex has vitamin B12 that will help to protect your neurons. Super important. Make sure you do resistance training, some cardio, balancing, and stretching exercises to activate those nerves and help with your cerebellum and help with kinematics and balancing. Super important. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. Click the link, go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right, America was founded on debate. Death of Debate, Part 3. This was released 16 hours ago.
And folks, Dad Saves America, DrPaulCottrell here, and welcome back to this, our 3rd episode in our 6-part special documentary series called The Death of Debate. We are exploring what has happened to debate in America, but especially what has happened with our kids in high school. Their first encounters with debating ideas, with the National Speech and Debate Association clubs, that end up being the first stop for some of the future leaders of our country. And believe me, there are reasons to be worried about what this first stop has become. This week, we are exploring American history, the debates that shaped our nation, the presidential debates that changed the course of history at key moments throughout the past 250 years. And of course, that fateful debate in 2024 that changed the course of our politics profoundly. It was probably the most incredible debate any of us have ever seen with our own 2 eyes. Now, let's dig back in to the death of debate.
This is a pivotal moment between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump in their rematch for the nation's highest office.
He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards.
I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
Who could possibly forget this night?
I was having the same thoughts that people all over America, Democrat, Republican, and everyone in between was having. Oh, this is so painfully bad. And then it gets worse. And you go, oh my God, I can barely hear him.
It showed the person who was our president was not fit for the job.
Oh my God, there's no way he can be president again. I'm not sure he can be president right now.
If anyone tries to tell you that debate isn't important, remind them about this debate.
Look, if we finally beat Medicare,
tens of millions watched as the president of the United States imploded on live TV.
Never heard so much malarkey in my whole life.
It was absolutely the most consequential televised presidential debate in history.
What you saw was a debate that led to the withdrawal of the presidential candidate and the president of the country, Biden. So for a lot of people that thought debate doesn't rate, debate doesn't matter, debate doesn't change any minds, debate isn't going to influence the outcome of the election, they saw a very different result from that debate. And in fact, that debate changed the course of the election, changed the course of history.
Granted, this is a very extreme example, but debate is woven into the fabric of America. And that's exactly why it was so troubling to me when I read the article alleging that radical critical theory ideology had taken over high school debate. Could it really be that a club known for young academics and nerdy kids had been taken over by Marxist race-hustling extremists? This wasn't just another culture war issue. It wasn't a story about crackers.
Something is seriously wrong with this whole CRT mentality that they're promoting, the woke agenda, this oppressor and oppressed. It's opening up the doors for reparations. And society, there are more opportunities for blacks today than ever in American history. There's more opportunity now in human history for blacks in the United States than ever in mankind's history. But they find a way to still try to fleece taxpayers. They find a way to still complain. Learn a book, pull up your pants, brush your teeth, make your bed, and be a productive citizen. The problem is that when they get into high school, they get into elementary school, they have bad behaviors. They don't pay attention to the teacher. And so no one learns. And then it becomes a free-for-all. It's like WWE. Instead of a classroom showing respect for the teacher. And then it's a downward spiral where you get a bunch of teachers that are getting into the profession that are probably not as good as teachers of yesteryear. And so they have the blue hair and the wokeism, and it's just a downward spiral. Super important to start realizing we need a country that has an affinity to God, country, and family. We need people to uphold those pillars. We need a population that has ethics. You look at public schools, especially in the inner city, it's a war zone. The kids aren't learning. That's why when they get out of high school, they can't read and write. They can't do mathematics. Got a land of stupids.
Logo or Sydney Sweeney's jeans. Speech and debate goes to the very foundation of what it means to be American, what it means to be human. And this idea seeping into our culture that words can be violence was toxic and dangerous.
This Black Friday gift is my favorite dentist hack to clean my retainers. If you wear a retainer every night like I do, you know how hard it is to keep it truly fresh and clean.
Was toxic and dangerous. What
Your speech is violence, and the left's new mantra to justify campus violence. See, they want to silence. They want to silence the conservative. And this is what the people were complaining about on campus at these universities, especially Harvard, when they were doing their surveys. Conservative people felt that they couldn't speak out because they would be ostracized by the student body or by the professor, and it may hurt their grade. They were trying to silence the conservative. And guess what? There was a warning by William F. Buckley about this back in 1951 when he was talking about Yale and his experience, because he was a very conservative individual, and that there was a liberalization of the education and started chipping away at God, country, and family as a foundation for a better society. So atheism was starting to be promoted. Socialism was starting to be promoted. Keynesianism. Just keep on having big government. And now, fast forward to 2025. Right? 75 years later. Boom. We got the problem that we have today. This is why I say conservatives need to push back. Don't give up. Hold the line. You have to hold the line, because if conservatives don't hold the line, we're going to end up as a socialist country. And that's not a productive country. I mean, look at what happened in New York. New York didn't hold the line, and now we got a Marxist mayor.
In 2014 is the arrival of a kind of a new moral matrix that is a new sort of moral worldview in which students are fragile, The world is dangerous. Words and books and ideas can be a kind of violence. Take the phrase, "Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never harm me." I've asked kids today whether they've heard that, and many have never heard it. In fact, in some cases, it is said to be a microaggression. That is, you're not supposed to say it, because if you say that, you are denying the pain that words have caused to other kids. So this has gone out of favor because the new idea is sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will cut me for life.
This idea that we have to watch what we say, that certain ideas shouldn't be debated at all, or that certain people, because of their identity alone.
And the liberals want to silence you because what is the most important amendment to the Constitution? The First Amendment. Freedom of speech. And when you silence people, then you have opened up the door for social control. And there's a reason for the Second Amendment to be right after the First Amendment, because the firewall, the support, the guarantee of your First Amendment rights is the Second Amendment.
Aren't capable of hearing, let alone making certain arguments. If the worst versions of that woke mind virus were spreading in high school debate clubs, I had to find out if that was true. So I went to the man who wrote those original articles, James Fishback, and he agreed to come on the record.
High school debate that I knew, that I loved, that I cherished, that changed my life has now fallen to an ideology where it's less about thinking, less about questioning, and more about conforming and appealing to the judge before you.
Just like in his articles, Fishback started lobbing bombs at the country's largest high school debate league, the NSDA.
The way to think about it is that in debate, there's really only two sides now. There's the moderate left and there's the far left. And that's the range of arguments you can make. Just those two.
I had to see all this with my own eyes. So I did what anyone would do. I asked for an interview with the NSDA and applied for a media pass to go to their national championship. My team did their due diligence and tried to make contact with the organizers as well. And then we waited and waited and waited. We would keep trying, but at least at first they ignored us, which was interesting and the polar opposite, frankly, of Fishback, who answered right away.
But more than anything, don't jump from A to F. Go to A, B, C, D. Let's walk through that, Rodrigo. So
now, maybe he wanted publicity, maybe he was a genuine guy. Only time would tell. Whatever the reason, he cooperated all through the making of this series and eventually invited me to be a judge at his tournament, Incubate Debate.
From Emergent Order, John Popola.
This was great news. I finally actually get to see all of this up close and from behind the scenes.
This is my first time judging at Incubate, and it really is inspiring how much you're able to dance together with this and not get upset. And the civility is very inspiring.
It's not an exaggeration to say that as a judge at Incubate, I might be rubbing shoulders with future congressmen, future Supreme Court justices, maybe a future president.
1/3 of members of Congress today did high school or college debate. Half of our Supreme Court, lawyers, doctors, politicians, all over the country participated in this activity.
The very creation of our country 250 years ago, this coming July, was itself a debate and a battle over the principles of free speech and open dialogue.
A lot of work got done in what would be considered committee meetings today, but at the time were people drinking in taverns.
Delaying now will cost us everything.
And disagreeing over how this revolution should go, whether they should break off entirely with the king and the parliament, or whether they should try to persuade them to do better.
These are fights about whether our country should even exist, and if it did, what the soul of the nation should be about. Case in point, the Boston Massacre. I learned all about this when I was starting to re-engage with history in my early 20s, riding the bus into New York City to my job at Viacom. David McCullough's John Adams was a really important book for me. And the story of the Boston Massacre is a really important story about America itself and the importance of steel manning the arguments of those we oppose. A few years before Independence Day, in March of 1770, British soldiers fired into a crowd in Boston, killing 5 civilians. The firebrands of the revolution, Samuel Adams, Paul Revere, and others, were all over this, using it as an example of why we needed to break free of British rule. The soldiers, of course, were absolutely despised, and a fair trial seemed impossible. But guess who came forward to defend them? None other than John Adams, one of America's founding fathers and a future president himself. In his defense of the soldiers, arguing they acted in self-defense, Adams said,
"Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passions, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence."
6 of the soldiers and their commanding officer were acquitted. 2 were convicted of manslaughter. But you know what won? The principles of what would become America. The idea that fair trials matter, that mob justice wasn't justice at all, and that even an American patriot like Adams could still make a strong argument in defense of British soldiers accused of killing his fellow compatriots.
How that was spun afterward, and the way John Adams actually created more feeling for the cause by defending the soldiers who shot these citizens was absolutely brilliant.
It is both morally and rhetorically powerful to take the high ground, to prove to everyone that you are a fair, dispassionate person fighting for the truth, not just your tribe. That's what Adams did. That's why his defense of the indefensible bolstered the cause for American independence. After the revolution, after we became an independent nation, the philosophical battles only continued in early America. Ironically, as if to embody how deeply difficult it is to remain a principled defender of free speech and debate, John Adams would, as president, tarnish his own reputation by signing the Alien and Sedition Acts of 1798, which made it a crime for American citizens to print, utter, or publish any false, scandalous, and malicious writing about the government. It's a good thing for our country that those acts were quickly defeated and repealed, and an even better thing that they weren't in effect when our founders were debating the future of the country in the Federalist Papers.
Oh, absolutely. The Federalist Papers were critical to the debate at the very, very highest level. Now, they were engaging with the elites. And so they were influencers influencing the influencers.
So, to refresh your memory, when America became independent, we really were more of a loosely bound group of states governed by something called the Articles of Confederation. After about 10 years, the Articles were considered too weak to hold the young country together by a lot of national figures. Now, whether that was actually correct or not is a debate for another time. But in any case, the Founding Fathers held a convention in Philadelphia, the city of my birth, actually, and came up with a document we now know as the U.S. Constitution. Once it was written, though, it still had to be ratified by all the states, and thus the public fight began in the Federalist Papers. These were articles written in colonial newspapers by people like Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay, arguing for the ratification of the Constitution. Not everyone was into this idea, of course, which is how the Anti-Federalist Papers were born. These were written by people like George Mason and Patrick Henry, who feared a powerful central government and opposed the Constitution on those grounds. So both sides of the argument were writing articles in newspapers making their case.
Unlike today, they only had to reach hundreds of people in order to influence things because those people they were reaching were the most literate. Those people were the ones influencing the entire town.
Right out in the open, a debate over the Constitution was happening with deeply reasoned, well-constructed arguments on both sides. Obviously, the Federalists won and the Constitution passed. But the process, the battle of ideas itself, was important. And the fight ended up making a difference in the end. One of the things the anti-federalists fought most.
I just want to rewind this for a second, because one of my ancestors may be on the signatures he's showing. Let's see here. One of my ancestors were the New Jersey delegation signing the Constitution, ratifying the Constitution.
Happening with deeply reasoned, well-constructed arguments on both sides. Obviously, the Federalists won and the Constitution passed.
Delaware, Maryland, Virginia.
But
North
the
Carolina.
process.
No, he didn't show
The
me.
battle of ideas itself was important, and the fight ended up making a difference in the end. One of the things the anti-federalists fought most passionately for was an explicit protection in the Constitution for individual rights. And they ended up getting it with the Bill of Rights, 10 amendments to the Constitution, the first of which included protection for debate itself. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble. The Bill of Rights was controversial at the time, and a big concession by the Federalists, who feared that enumerating such rights would suggest that the government might be free to do anything not explicitly prohibited. So the 10th Amendment did its best to leave no room for doubt, and it reads, "The power not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people." The rights we now hold dear as Americans were the direct result of rigorous public debate. And so a uniquely American compromise in favor of liberty was born. Those kind of things actually happened back then. Although, make no mistake, even from the beginning, political debate in America has always been far from civil.
What a maneuver by the general. And look out, it's Franklin with the electric elbow drop. What a battle of independence.
Donald Trump's tweets have nothing on the founding fathers.
My energy bill dropped from $150 to $50 by doing this. My friends laughed at me when I spent $49 on a power saver device that could cut my energy bill.
John Adams is a blind, bald, crippled, toothless man who wants to start a war with France. While he's not busy importing mistresses from Europe, he's trying to marry one of his sons to a daughter of King George. Haven't we had enough monarchy in America?
Our friends over at Reason made these fake attack ads using actual statements made by the supporters of John Adams and Thomas Jefferson during their bid for election.
If Thomas Jefferson wins, murder, robbery, adultery, and will be openly taught and practiced. The air will be rent with the cries of the distressed. The soil will be soaked with blood, and the nation black with crimes. Are you prepared to see your dwellings in flames, female chastity violated, children writhing on a pike?
Clearly, brutal, mudslinging debates are as American as it gets. I mean, high school debates actually have an event called Lincoln Douglas, named after, well, you guessed it, the real Lincoln Douglas debates. Those 1858 mental gladiator matches really were the standard bearer, and in many ways led to political debate as we know it today. Abraham Lincoln and Stephen Douglas had a series of 7 debates across Illinois, each lasting hours with no moderator. They were fighting for a U.S. Senate seat, but really they were grappling over the soul of America. Slavery and what we were going to do about it inevitably dominated those debates. Obviously, they weren't televised or on the radio, but transcripts were printed in newspapers, and they were the first political debates to get sustained national coverage. Believe it or not, though, actual presidential debates are relatively new. For a long time, they were considered beneath the office. Oh, how far we've fallen. I didn't realize this until now, But the first primary debate wasn't until 1948. It also happened to be on the radio. Former Minnesota Governor Harold Stassen versus New York Governor Thomas Dewey, both Republicans.
And there's a symbiotic relationship here because these events create a lot of viewers. Well, that adds to advertising revenue. But not just that. Regular advertising revenue, like, for products that you would buy for your home, but also campaign advertising. So the more conflict you engineer in the society between different parties, the more chance of revenue to be gained by these different media outlets. So they fuel it. They fuel the division. But before we continue, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Good Night Formula. This will help you to get into 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. That will help to consolidate memory, detoxify your central nervous system, and you'll be well rested. You take this regularly, you're going to slow down the aging process. It has tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower. Take it every night. Digestive enzyme complex helps you to break up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, reduce the stress on your pancreas, and allow you to properly absorb your nutrients. This has bromelain in it, helps to break up clots, and digestive enzyme complex is the proteolytic enzymes to break up glycoprotein, super important. For the fall season, that was the reason why I said take the digestive enzyme complex during the crisis of 2020. Olive leaf extract brings down inflammation and helps your lipid profile. This will help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. It's a great dual purpose supplement. Take it every day. And an awesome neurostat is clarity factor. It's going to get rid of that brain fog. Take it every day. It'll allow you to concentrate, and over time, it will improve your neuroplasticity. That positive neuroplasticity to link up those different neurons so you're thinking faster and you have better memory. Please go to my store, take the clarity factor every day. So please go to my store, get the clarity factor for the neurostack, the olive leaf extract to help with your immune system and cardiovascular system, the digestive enzyme complex to absorb your nutrients and reduce the stress on your pancreas, and the Good Night Formula to sleep well regularly. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last.
The topic, I love this. Shall the Communist Party be outlawed? Stassen argued to keep the commies out of America. And frankly, I can relate.
We ought to have the best chance of winning through for freedom without the horror of a third world war. The free countries must take action to protect themselves against this stiff sound in this unsettled period, which has been called a Cold War. There's now no law in America to prevent these communist organizations from secretly developing organizations of hidden members, from carrying on secret conspiracies to promote strikes, to stir up hatred between races and religions in America, and from following their directions from Moscow.
Stassen sure had a point as...
Oh, hey, Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Growing up, all I wanted was a 10-year-old. Now, older, I know that's the gift is unlimited.
Stassen sure had a point, as time would definitely tell. Dewey, on the other hand, took an idealistic free speech stance.
I am unalterably, wholeheartedly, unswervingly against any scheme to write laws outlawing people because of their religious, political, social, or economic ideas. I'm against it because it's a violation of the Constitution of the United States and of the Bill of Rights, and clearly so. Stripped to its naked essentials, this is nothing but the method of Hitler and Stalin. It is thought control, borrowed from the Japanese war leadership. It's an attempt to beat down ideas with a club.
I gotta say, a compelling and principled argument, even for my deeply anti-communist ears. Now, anyway, the press watched the Stassen-Dewey debate from behind a glass wall. As many as 80 million people listened, And that's a lot. The country only had 150 million people in it back then. Dewey's deeply constitutional case carried the day in the public and helped win him the chance to lose to Harry Truman. A few years later came the granddaddy debate of them all, the first presidential debate ever between two opposing parties live on television.
The candidates need no introduction. The Republican candidate, Vice President Richard M. Nixon, and the Democratic candidate, Senator John F. Kennedy.
The debate is famous and still talked about to this day. JFK looked tan, handsome, and relaxed.
I don't believe in big government, but I believe in effective governmental action. And I think that's the only way that the United States is going to maintain its freedom.
Nixon looked kind of like a sweaty, shifty mess.
Senator Kennedy has suggested that he believes he knows the way. I respect the sincerity with which he makes that suggestion.
We were all still figuring out how TV worked back then. And to that point, Nixon refused to wear makeup because, well, he didn't want to look fake. Big mistake. Legend has it that Nixon's appearance cost him. It's been widely reported for 65 years that the people who listened on the radio thought Nixon had won, but people watching on TV thought JFK had won. It turns out that's more myth than fact. The only evidence for it appears to be based on a poll with an incredibly small sample size. That said, it's undeniably true that Nixon did himself no favors. And we were entering into an era of optics and performance that has dominated our discourse through to today. The age of TV political sophistry was born.
Mr. President, I want to raise an issue that I think has been lurking out there for 2 or 3 weeks.
Our presidential debate moments are legendary.
You already are the oldest president in history.
Ronald Reagan diffuses the biggest argument against his reelection in one brilliant line.
I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit, for political purposes, my opponent's youth and inexperience.
Senator Lloyd Bentsen torches a young Dan Quayle.
I served with Jack Kennedy. I knew Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Bush 41 gets hammered by the press for looking at his watch. Al Gore, frankly, acts like a complete weirdo, looming behind George Bush during a town hall.
But can you get things done? And I believe I can.
Why? And sighing at every answer W gives.
I've had a record of appointing judges in the state of Texas. That's what a governor gets to do. He's practicing fuzzy math again. There's differences.
And Texas Governor Rick Perry goes down in flames.
It's 3 agencies of government when I get there that are gone. Commerce, education, and the, what's the third one there? Let's see.
You can't name the third one?
Well, I can't. The third one I can't. Sorry. Oops.
It's hard to chronicle all the moments that have been burned into our consciousness, especially in the era of Donald Trump.
You're wrong.
No,
Wrong.
that is absolutely
Wrong.
over and over again.
Wrong.
But in this last election, 2024, we went into uncharted waters. First of all, the organization that had presented all of the presidential debates since 1988, the Commission on Presidential Debates, ended its stranglehold on control.
Both camps lost faith with the commission, and I actually think for good reason, although they didn't see it that way. This organization was something that was permitting, to my mind, a narrow range in the debates.
The commission is bipartisan, which I guess is good, although they've notoriously shut out third-party candidates most of the time. And they've often been accused of picking biased moderators.
The commission has presided over a whole series of debates that have become really divisive, that have created a platform and set up candidates, and a lot of times for failure, with moderators that have an agenda and changing the spotlight from their policy positions to, all these other factors, whether it's your moderator, your opposition, or gotcha questions.
Moderator bias, as we'll see later in our analysis of high school debate, is one of the most insidious ways debate competitions become skewed. But whether or not the commission was actually...
Scammers demand payment with gift cards. Don't share codes or personal details.
Are you wearing 7 layers and still freezing your man nipples?
You need the new 340 GSM military.
But whether or not the commission was actually biased, in this last election cycle, both sides decided enough was enough. And for the first time, the candidates negotiated the general election presidential debate directly with each other and with networks. So President Biden's notorious meltdown happened in a debate run by CNN.
Making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
Who knows what the future holds for presidential debates in this country and whether the commission itself is permanently defunct. Maybe it's better if it is. My gut tells me that there's more hope for better debates with different groups vying for a chance to host them and trying out different formats. No matter what, we all know after 2024 how high the stakes truly are and why the corruption of debate at any level, including high school, matters so much to our country.
I really don't know what he said at the end of this, and I don't think he knows what he said either.
That was hilarious. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the resveratrol. Resveratrol is something that I've been taking for decades. Super important to add into your health protocol, especially for anti-aging. This will soak up free radicals, help the health of the mitochondria. When you're increasing the health of the mitochondria, you're going to produce more ATP, so you're going to have more energy. You're going to be able to get rid of cells that are in senescence. So in tissues that can rejuvenate, the overall average in that tissue can be younger because the telomere lengths will be longer. And resveratrol will help with that, slowing down that aging process. It stacks really well with C60, NAD+, ubiquinol, clarity factor. So please get the resveratrol, slow down the aging process. It's really important. I've been taking this for many decades. So please go to my store and get the resveratrol. And also be prepared for the winter season. This winter season, if you've been paying attention, there's a surge of some problems. All right? So you need to mitigate right away. The moment you have that throat irritation or you're around someone that has some issues, take the drops made from structural nail silver. Have a few bags at home, at work. You never know when you need them, but take them right away. Very high quality. You can get it in honey and lemon, in cherry flavor, and also in blueberry. Get a few bags for your household. And the moment you have that throat irritation or someone around you is not feeling so well, take them right away. Very high quality. Be prepared. Make sure they use discount 5. You can get $5 off. It's a great way to save money. And if you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. That's another way to save money. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right. U.S. strikes another alleged drug vote as Dems rage. Because the Democratic Party would prefer to support narco-terrorists.
Is carrying out another deadly strike on an alleged drug boat in the Eastern Pacific. U.S. Southern Command saying in part, quote, intelligence confirmed that that vessel was carrying illicit narcotics and transiting along a known narco trafficking route in the Eastern Pacific. 4 male narco terrorists aboard that vessel were killed.
I saw 2 survivors.
trying to flip a boat, loaded with drugs, down to the United States, back over, so they could stay in the fight. And potentially get into all the context we heard of other narco-terrorist boats in the area coming to their aid to recover their cargo and recover those narco-terrorists.
So that's Republican Senator Tom Cotton immediately as he came out of that SCIF, the secret security briefing there in Washington. He talked for about 5 minutes there about the video of the second strike on that alleged boat in the Caribbean back in September. This after a briefing with the Navy Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley. Now, he detailed that attack to some lawmakers in closed-door sessions yesterday. So far, the U.S. has carried out 22 strikes against alleged drug boats in recent months. I want to bring in Rick Crawford, Republican congressman out of Arkansas, chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. He was also briefed by Admiral Bradley yesterday. And, sir, welcome to our coverage today on this Friday morning. We're here from Senator Cotton. Give me your take. What did you see?
Yeah, I think he characterized that pretty accurately. I wouldn't disagree with his characterization at all. I got the same brief, and you know, Tom pretty well nailed it. I mean, look, these are, you got to remember who we're dealing with here. I mean, we're dealing with cartel operatives. They are so vile. The things that they do, you know, say nothing of the fact that they bring illicit drugs into the United States, but their conduct makes ISIS look like Boy Scouts. So I don't know that we should shed a tear over these strikes that are keeping Americans safe.
Here is Jim Himes, Democrat colleague from Connecticut. He sees it entire. I mean, this is a 180 here. Okay, listen to his observation.
On that room was one of the most troubling things I've seen in my time in public service. Any American who sees the video that I saw will see the United States military attacking shipwrecked sailors. Bad guys, but attacking shipwrecked sailors. Now, there's a whole set of contextual items that the Admiral explained. Yes, they were carrying drugs. They were not in a position to continue their mission in any way.
So he says they were shipwrecked a couple times there, which suggests that they were defenseless. What do you say to that?
Yeah, this isn't the Skipper and Gilligan on the SS Minnow we're going after here. These are hardened drug traffickers. That was look, I have the utmost respect for my ranking member Jim Himes, but respectfully, we just disagree. We're dealing with a vile element here, and they were, as my friend Senator Cotton characterized, they were trying to right that ship. It was still laden with cargo because it was strapped into the boat. They were potentially signaling other vessels in the region. We don't know if they had access to SATCOMs or not, but as he characterized, still in the fight. And this is characteristic of these kind of strikes where we hear the term double tap. It's completely consistent with the same tactics and techniques and procedures that took place under President Obama's watch when he took strikes on terrorists, some of which were U.S. persons and or U.S. citizens. So I don't recall the outrage on those strikes when it was the Obama administration exercising, but we have all this righteous indignation because President Trump was taking an active role in protecting Americans.
All right, it's Friday morning here. 2 days ago on Wednesday, the president was asked about it as to whether or not the American public would see it. Here's how he answered that.
You released video of that first boat strike on September 2nd, but not the second video. Will you release video of that strike so that the American people can see for themselves?
I don't know what they have, but whatever they have, we certainly release, no problem. You know, we stopped every boat we knock out. We saved 25,000 American lives.
Sir, will we see it? Should we see it?
Well, I think if you saw that in context and you understood the briefing that we got as it applies to the decision tree that takes place in real time. The Joint Operations Center, where these strikes are basically led and directed, there's so many people in there, and not to mention the fact that there are lawyers present. This is not some rogue decision that some guy just jumped out there and on his own did. It follows a strict protocol, a decision-making process, what they call a decision tree before they exercise, and there's a consensus in the room. Ultimately, the decision is made by the man at the top, and that's Admiral Bradley. And to say something about Admiral Bradley, first off, appreciate him and the chairman coming in and briefing us, but he is one of the most respected officers in the military. We don't know a lot about him because he is a quiet professional. He does exercise sound judgment. He did so in this case as well.
Rick Crawford, thank you for your time.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered.
Kill narco terrorists? I don't care. Do more. Kill more of them. Just don't care. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the gladiator barley. Get some muscle so you can kill the narco terrorists. Gladiator barley will help to build muscle, bring down inflammation so you're going to be able to recover from your workout quicker. It detoxifies your body and also soaks up free radicals. You'll slow down the aging process by taking gladiator barley. And when you're detoxifying your body and bringing down inflammation, you're helping your immune system and your endocrine system. So this is dual purpose. You're going to gain muscle by doing resistance training and taking the gladiator barley. This is a micronutrient protein. This is way better than anything that you can buy out there, either at GNC or even at, barley at the store. This is an heirloom barley with very important micronutrients. And this, again, will help to detoxify your body. When you do that, your other organ systems will perform better. This is super important to take. So please go to my store and get the gladiator barley. Now, if you don't want to build muscle, and you're not going to be Arnold Schwarzenegger by taking this. You're just going to gain muscle. But if you don't want that and you just want to detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals, heirloom barley is the pick. And again, it's going to help your immune system and your endocrine system. So please go to my store, get the heirloom barley. Now you can stack this with the other supplements that I have, especially with the Boomer Boost. Or you can stack this with the Boomer Boost. Very high quality. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. And detoxify your body with zeolite. 3 small drops underneath your tongue. Drink the filtered water. Do that every day. This will bind to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals and allow you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. When you do that regularly, guess what? Your body starts to get healthier, gets in homeostasis. Your immune system, your endocrine system will perform better. Your other organ systems will perform better. Your brain will perform better if you get rid of the toxins. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the zeolite, take it every day. All right. What's next? Let's listen to Cash Jordan talking about Omar. Well, no. I think Cash Jordan actually released something earlier. Or later. Here it is. Let's listen to the 80,000 Somalis by Cash Jordan.
David Gehrman. More meaningful with time.
Our wholesale partners rely on us for great coffee. We rely on you guys to get it there.
ICE is on the ground in Minnesota, and while agents are out there arresting people, some of the fraudsters who stole billions of dollars are living in neighborhoods just like this.
Some fraudsters are still benefiting from their crimes even after being charged and convicted.
How is that possible?
From this 5-bed, 4.5 bath in Washington County to $1 million house in Plymouth, complete with an indoor basketball court. My name is Stanley Rasmussen. I'm a reporter at KSTP. Do you know if the government is trying to take this house? We had to see these properties for ourselves. Each house owned by people convicted of fraud.
This was a big fraud.
Defeating our future. $250 million meant to help kids in need, but long after prosecutors filed paperwork to seize properties purchased with stolen taxpayer dollars, neighbors told 5 Investigates that still has not happened. Take former Safari restaurant owner Salim Saeed. 5 guilty verdicts now. A jury convicted him and Feeding Our Future founder Amy Bach nearly 9 months ago. But we found Saeed and his wife are still the official owners of this $1.1 million house in Plymouth.
Great.
Fraud money funded their $952,000 down payment in 2021. And county records show they've racked up more than $50,000 in delinquent property taxes.
Well, they're fraudsters. Why would they pay their taxes?
To the note I left, but a week later we did see someone leaving.
The news is taking us out.
Prosecutors say they have to wait for Salim Saeed to be sentenced before they can take the property.
Oh, really?
But that doesn't explain this one. Records show the owner of this house in Willerny is Jonathan Ross, the husband of Sharon Ross.
We want to keep that program going.
The former director of House of Refuge Twin Cities was sentenced to prison in February for her role in the Feeding Our Future film. And it should have cleared the way for the government to take the property. But we found a car registered to Ross's husband still sitting in the driveway.
Is it abandoned?
We are also asking about this house in Burnsville.
Everyone looks like they're getting away with it. Are these people being protected by officials in Minnesota?
Of course they are.
Benefited from this fraud?
Owned by former Feeding Our Future employee Abdikerm Idle. Do you know Mr. Idle? Right before being named in the first indictment,
He was the owner.
Amy Bach's right-hand man fled the country. Do you know where he is? That's the voice of Idle's ex-wife, according to a second person who spoke to me from behind the front door.
Did they still live there?
Sure enough, a month after investigators say Idle put down $95,000 on his new house, records show he and his wife filed for divorce. A mutual agreement, living in the same house, they wrote.
But at the exact same time, Minnesota's governor says he's in danger inside his own home.
And I'll tell you what, in my time on this, I've never seen this before. People driving by my house and using the R word in front of people.
Oh, yes.
This is shameful.
We're calling him names.
Yes, yet to see.
Democrat running a state into the ground and fleecing American taxpayers. And then not just that, we have veterans that are homeless. We have elderly that can't eat and take their medication because they can't afford it. They either pick one or the other. This is unacceptable. And every single one of these illegal immigrants need to be kicked out of this country. And not only that, the state should pay back the taxpayers for the fraud that they allow to happen. Incompetence right there. And he almost was like a BP. If you vote for the Democratic Party, you're an idiot. You're an absolute idiot.
Elected official, a Republican elected official say you're right, that's shameful.
I wonder why that is.
Donald Trump has done. He's normalized this type of hateful behavior and this type of language.
Well, maybe it's time for us to be a little meaner. And when it's adult like Donald Trump, you bully him back.
Well, we
wait a minute. You know what? I think you need to run your state right and stop fleecing the American taxpayers. And don't coddle to illegal aliens. They need to get out of this country. They don't belong here. They're here illegally.
Elon Musk.
So he's nasty to all kinds of people, and people are calling him names, allegedly, with no evidence, and he's outraged. But remember just a few days ago when people got mad at Trump for calling Ilhan Omar names? Well, she's doing it too. And she's talking about other Somali Americans. Watch this.
dadkaasoo kaleetana magaalada ay nolol xinool yihiin waan aragnaa anagoo dhan
Some of us try to dismiss it, saying, "Oh, that person just talks too much. It doesn't mean anything. Or leave them alone. That's my relative. You probably know them." All these shots, you know exactly the kind of people I'm talking about. You've sat with them at Starbucks. Maybe you've seen them at the mosque once in a while. You've gone to parties with them. You know who I mean. You've seen them. So she says,
Yeah, we need to get rid of these people because they're illegal here. If they're illegal, they need to get out. But the thing is that not only do you have illegal ones fleecing America, you have even American citizens fleecing America too. We need to hold these people accountable. We don't have the taxpayer money to waste. And not just that, it should be diverted to people that are actually in need, like the elderly and our veterans. Not illegal Somalians. I don't care about illegal Somalians. I care about my veterans. I care about the elderly. I don't care about the Somalis. Sorry.
are people in her community that do not improve it at all. And look at her face. She means it. She really wants to do what she's saying here. But when Trump says it, oh, he's so terrible. This is unprecedented. This is an attack on an entire community. She's doing the exact same thing. Wow. She wants to kick people out. This is so crazy. Why does she need to defend herself if everything's perfect and there aren't people who don't improve the Somali community living in America? This looks like an attack to me, man.
Watching the clip of Omar, this is somebody that fled this, terrible country, no rights, and then she comes to the United States and uses our freedoms to try to make us more like the country she fled. How does that make any sense?
Right, she's attacking America when she's not
many
attacking
decades of government. Obviously, not me or current Trump administration, but what had happened to bring in so many people who really don't necessarily want to assimilate. And I think some of these candidates who run there talk about they're not America first, but Somali first.
They did say that.
So it's really a failure of the
She was
elite
just
in this
saying
country with how they've handled immigration, particularly by putting Americans last.
They say it's racist if you say that all these Somalis stole $1 billion.
Yeah, the race card is what they're trying to do to evade accountability.
Right. They're using that as a way to try and shut down these investigations into people who stole massive amounts of money and bought luxury homes and are still living there in some cases. But the local government here and a slow-rolling justice system aren't the only ones protecting criminals in Minnesota. Watch this.
But immigration agents might be met with a chilly reception at some Minnesota businesses.
Oh, really?
They have posted signs stating that ICE is not welcome inside. WCCO's Jason Ranch explains when businesses can refuse to cooperate and how one restaurant manager says she stood her ground.
Oh, look at this.
They said
my energy bill dropped from $150 to $50 by doing this. My friends laughed at me when I spent $49 on a power saver device that could cut my.
Look at this.
They said to me, we're from the Department of Homeland Security.
Ola Arepa in Minneapolis was heading into dinner rush Wednesday night when two plainclothed individuals entered the restaurant. That's General Manager Naomi Rathke speaking with the men who, she said, identified themselves as ICE.
Whipped out a badge really quickly and then flashed a photo of someone on their phone. And then they said, we're looking for this person. I said, this person doesn't work here. They had said, well, we see her in the backlight. I said, that person is not here.
They're harboring criminals. There are federal fugitives working at some of these businesses who ICE agents say they saw in them.
Doesn't that sound like they want to circumvent government? They want to circumvent the law? They want to circumvent... See, this person is harboring illegals. She doesn't believe in the rule of law. She is supporting actually misuse of taxpayer funds that could go to people that are in need, that deserve it, like our veterans, like our elderly. No. No. Illegals. Where's the God country? Where's this concept of God, country, and family? Where is it? So we have a lot of people that are in this country, in the United States, that don't want to assimilate. We have a lot of people in this country that don't have an affinity for the idea of Americana. Conservatives need to push back. They need to push back and say, no, we're not going to put up with this liberal horseshit. Illegals are illegal.
Restaurant, and the restaurant people protected them.
Naomi refused to let the men into
And
the
the thing
restaurant.
is that they're doing that because it's cheaper. So basically, illegals are slave labor. And the Democratic Party is supporting slave labor, just like they supported slavery, black slavery. Democratic Party supported that. Don't forget. Don't forget. Now they want you to stay on the urban plantation and vote Democrat.
House.
They said, we don't need a warrant.
They don't.
I said, yes, you do.
She says the men told them the restaurant was surrounded and they'd be waiting outside for the
Wow.
individual they were looking to apprehend.
I guess it's just sort of this fight or flight sort of response. People like to say,
Look, it's not we're rolling. For them to stay there for one
As
person.
they say, the men left the parking lot in two
They get
vehicles.
zero
I think it's
cooperation.
posturing. I think it's intimidation.
Ola Arepa's owner and chef, Christina Wynn, says her restaurant closed early that night and safely escorted employees to their cars.
Oh my
She
goodness.
says her surveillance cameras also captured ICE leaving her lot the morning before.
Oh, wow.
The National Immigration Law Center says ICE needs a judicial warrant to enter a private area of a business. An administrative warrant does not allow agents to enter private areas without your permission.
But they can enter areas that are generally accessible. Like if a business has its front door open, they can go in there. The kitchen area is technically private. That's why they, I guess, ask for permission. There's debate over this because if a fugitive is seen fleeing into a private area, they're allowed to pursue that person and they don't need a warrant. But the most maddening thing about this story is what we're learning of the devious schemes people were using to pull money out of the welfare agencies that are supposed to be helping people.
They had 3 very elaborate schemes.
Elaborate schemes.
The first scheme was centered on supposedly feeding hungry children in the Somali community.
And they threatened the government.
A group, a nonprofit run by some people with Somali ancestry.
I told you it's nonprofits that they're a part of the problem here. I said that in my last episode.
The name of the nonprofit was called Feeding Our Future. Feeding Our Future.
Yeah, feeding themselves.
Feeding Our Future went to the welfare authorities in the state of Minnesota, which of course was administering federal taxpayer money, and they said, "Look, feeding our children said, feeding our future said, we want to feed hungry children in the Somali community." And the welfare people in state government in Minnesota gave them the money to do that. It started out very small.
That's how all fraud starts.
But the idea was that Feeding the Future, the Somali nonprofit organization, would take this federal taxpayer money, American taxpayer money, and go to businesses, most of which were Somali businesses,
spend it there
in the Somali community, and set up feeding sites where they supposedly would take children to get a hot meal. On paper, it sounded great.
This didn't actually happen.
As I say, it started out Very, very small.
There were restaurants that said they fed 18,000 people a month and were like the size of the room I'm in.
It got bigger and bigger and bigger. And more businesses in the Somali community signed up to be feeding sites.
Yeah, and some of them were
It's feeding our future. The Somali
couldn't
nonprofit
feed
kept
anybody.
going back to the social services department in Minnesota saying, we need more money, we need more money.
What a grip.
And at the height of fraud, of the fraud, they were spending about $100 million.
That's
a year.
crazy.
Not over the lifetime of the program, $100 million a year.
That's insane.
There's just one problem. There were no hungry children.
Right.
There were hungry children. They just weren't getting any of the money.
These places signed up to be feeding stations, and they had like no tables in some of these places. There were restaurants that said, oh yeah, we're a feeding station, but no meals were ever
This is what I'm
distributed.
talking about, God, country, and family. When you don't have ethics because you don't have some sort of moral foundation through some sort of religious affiliation, you do stuff like this. When you don't have an affiliation to country, you're willing to steal from the country and the citizens. This is why those three pillars are so important: God, country, and family.
Ran business as usual and collected government money for programs that didn't even exist. It's crazy. But wait till you hear what other schemes were happening.
Again, run by someone of Somali ancestry. And this nonprofit went to a bunch of providers who supposedly were going to provide
Housing. Great. We love housing.
And they
Housing and
told
food.
the welfare authorities in Minnesota that they needed millions of dollars to house people who were homeless.
Right.
And once again, the program started out small. When they started it in 2020, these crooks started it in 2020.
These crooks, thank you.
They said, we only need $2.6 million.
Only.
But then in 2021, they said, we need $21 million.
So 1 year later, 10 times the money.
In the following years, they said, we need $42 million. The next
Yeah, they
year,
just kept pulling.
then $74 million.
$74 million.
to feed, or rather to house the homeless.
House the homeless.
Then $104 million a year. Not the total
A year.
Scheme.
I suspect there was a kickback. Whoever the government officials were to rubber stamp this, there was some sort of kickback.
There's just one problem. None of the money was going for housing.
I mean, you've got every nonprofit grifter in America watching this happen and saying, gee, they're all taking notes. They're all watching this. They're all taking notes. They're all trying to figure out how they could replicate these schemes in other sanctuary areas of the country. And you know something? After this, we're going to find out there's all kinds of fraud plundering the U.S. taxpayer all across this land.
None of the money was going to help people who were homeless. These providers and this nonprofit.
Where are the checks and balances?
Just put the money in their pocket.
Yeah, and bought houses and stuff. This is
But
crazy.
there's more.
There's more. Oh, there's more.
They came up with a third scheme.
Well, what's this one? Tell me about this one.
This one is. This one makes you want to throw up in a potty plant. This one's centered around autistic children.
Oh, yeah, I heard about this. Fake billing.
Once again, in this third program, a group of providers, supposedly medical providers, got together and they went to the welfare authorities in Minnesota and said, we need money to help autistic children.
Who does the welfare agency say no to? That's what I want to know. Who comes in the door and asks these people for tens of millions of dollars and gets turned away?
There's kickbacks. There's fraud. I'm telling you, it's not just fraud where the nonprofit is collecting the money and not helping ones in need. Government officials are tied to this fraud. they're getting them. There's kickbacks here. There has to be. There's no way that they would have been rubber stamping this for so long and so egregiously unless there's kickbacks.
Because it looks like they're giving money to whoever asks, as long as they threaten them. And as long as they tell them, if you don't help us, we're going to call you out for attacking our community. But as it turns out, there may be more
details about the investigation into $1 billion welfare fraud scandal.
Watch this.
In new reports claiming Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar has deep ties to people who personally profited from the alleged fraud. That list includes one of her former campaign officials and a co-owner of the restaurant where Omar held her 2018 congressional victory party. It is important to note that Congresswoman has not been directly linked to the fraud herself.
This was a
time is the largest
fraud redistribution
scandal,
scheme.
taxpayer money waste in the nation. And we've been sounding the alarm over the years. We're finally
If he
getting
was
that
vice
national
president,
attention that we
would
need
anything
so
happen?
much here in our state to have full investigations.
Would there be an
But
investigation?
you're right. It's over $1 billion in taxpayer dollars that have gone out to fraud
Right.
instead of going to
This
the
is
people that
their
needed those
embezzlement
services the
machine.
most.
Tim Walz is up for re-election. What are people? What are residents in Minnesota saying?
Probably.
Tim Walz is up for his third election.
I was thinking my retainer wrong until I got this Black Friday deal. Aligners, night guards, retainers. If you wear them, I'm sure you probably brush them. I recently went to the dentist and she told me, how do you clean these? I'm like, I brush them. Doesn't everyone? And it turns out what that does is actually scratch the aligner and then bacteria gets caught in there and it's really hard to get rid of. And there's also the option to do like soaking tablets. But that actually doesn't remove the hardened plaque. So then I was wondering, okay, then what do I use? And she put me on to this. This is a dental pod. It is an ultrasonic cleaner. It uses 42,000 hertz ultrasonic waves to penetrate and clean your aligners. And ever since I started using it, my aligners look so good. Like, I've never been able to have them this clean. They almost look brand new. Now, if you have a retainer, a night guard, or an aligner, and you struggle to get it clean, Zima is having their biggest sale until next year, so make sure you get one before it sells out.
Well, hey, Ryan Reynolds here from Mobile. Growing up, all I wanted was attention. Now, older, I know that's it. It's unlimited.
Tim Walz is up for his third election here in the state of Minnesota. People were surprised when he was reelected for a second time. But when he was on the national stage just a year ago, it really let the nation know truly who Tim Walz is. Definitely let Minnesotans know his favorability is underwater right now. It's less than 50%. And it's mostly because he has not handled fraud and he's increased our taxes and fees and spent through a record surplus.
So taxes went up for people living in America's most fraudulent state, so that money could be taken and given to people who buy luxury homes and send it out of the country. Unbelievable.
He said this could be just the tip of the iceberg. It could push north almost to $2 billion.
$2 billion.
Again, these are taxpayer dollars that have been stolen by fraudsters here in the state of Minnesota.
Well, in 2020, according to the New York Times, the Minnesota Department of Education actually questioned Feeding Our Future, which is one of these fraudulent organizations, about all the requests that they were making. And the organization actually threatened the state agency and said that if you don't give us what we want, we're going to sue you, accuse you of racism. And I don't think we really want that kind.
There it is again. That has been used to justify theft. And what a scam that is on people who are empathetic and want to help children and want to help the less fortunate. Nobody was getting fed. Nobody was getting treated. Nobody was getting homes. Whoever was supposed to go out and say, gee, show me the building that you built and all the homeless people that are now living here who aren't on the streets, can you show it to me? No one even asked to see any evidence that the money was even being used appropriately. And when they did, they were threatened. And of course they caved, because these are people with no morals spending your money on somebody else. They don't care, but I care. Do you? Are you happy you voted the way you did in the last election? Did America dodge a big one here by not having a fraudulent governor sitting in the White House calling the shots? Let me know. See you in the next video.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get healthy and support the channel and support capitalism. I'm in the heart of New York City, and we've been taken over by a bunch of Marxists. You need to support me because I'm on the front line. Please get the collagen. This is a very high quality product that will help with your skin, your nails, your hair, your musculature, your bone density, your cartilage, and your joint health. Take it every day. This is a month's supply. Super important. And Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost has 68 nutrients, is a very comprehensive compound profile shown on the screen here. You can read the label on my website. But these 68 nutrients will help different systems of your body, your brain function, your cardiovascular health, help with musculature, rev up your metabolism and increase your energy levels. And over time, you're going to be able to see that you are slowing down the aging process. It's boosting up your immune system, helping with your endocrine system, helping with controlling A1C levels. Go to my store and get the Boomer Boost. This is a month's supply. Take it with soft foods, filtered water, a smoothie, or even with just milk. But take it every day. And you will notice within 72 hours that you have more vitality, more energy. And it's a steady burn of energy throughout the whole day, no spiking. It's healthy energy, right? And taking it regularly throughout the year, you're going to notice that you're getting healthier and you're slowing down the aging process. So please go to my store, get the Boomer Boost. You can stack this with many different supplements, especially with the heirloom barley and the gladiator barley. So please go to my store, get the Boomer Boost and the collagen. All right, we're going to go to Fox News about Omar under fire.
33 past back here in California. Minnesota's Democratic leadership is facing mounting pressure to try and explain how a series of alleged fraud schemes cost taxpayers more than $1 billion. There was growing investigations into these cases by the day. Garrett Tenney has the latest from our bureau in the Midwest. Garrett, good morning to you.
Yeah, Bill, good morning to you. We've been reporting all week how that $1 billion figure for how much was stolen could really be just the tip of the iceberg. Well, now we have learned that several of the whistleblowers involved in these cases believe the total amount by the time these investigations are complete could be closer to $8 billion. Prosecutors have described this as an industrial complex of fraud with dozens of businesses set up for the sole purpose of defrauding the state of Minnesota, and that a vast majority of the folks involved came from the Somali community. Governor Tim Walz says the state has now paused those government programs and brought in outside auditors to get a better idea of how far-reaching this fraud was to try to keep it from happening again.
My goal is to make sure that those going forward have much better tools, much more safeguards around programs to be clear that improve people's lives, that help, whether it's children with autism, whether it's childcare, whether it's housing, whether it's food, nutrition, and those things are absolutely paramount. And if folks are going to commit crimes here, thinking because our generous spirit and our programs that we have is going to give them some kind of cover, they are sadly mistaken.
Yeah, Walz maintains that as soon as any of these fraud issues were raised, they were looked into by the state, but whistleblowers allegedly claim that the concerns over fraud in these programs—
Why didn't the state do proper auditing? When you give out grants to nonprofits, they're audited. You have to fill out your case documentation, show that there's, proper procedures. Where was the proper auditing? Oh, there weren't any. Or it was fraudulent. And then now he's saying, oh, we got a big problem, we're going to look into it. He's either grossly incompetent or he was part of the fraud. Or maybe both.
Repeatedly raised to both Walz and other state officials who dismissed them and then even retaliated against the whistleblowers for raising the concerns. State Republican lawmakers say all of these federal investigations that are now happening will finally bring light to an issue that has been ignored for years.
There are some very strong allegations against the administration. And I guess you can look at it like this. Either The Walz administration is incredibly incompetent or they're complicit. At this point, I don't see how you see it any other way.
DHS has dubbed its new ICE operation in the Twin Cities is Operation Metro Surge, and in its first 3 days, the agency says it has made at least 12 arrests, including 5 Somali individuals, several with previous convictions for fraud. Bill?
I imagine we'll be hearing more about this very soon. Garrett Tenney, thank you for watching that story for us today. I'll be shooting on. Thanks.
Okay, so the Small Business Administration is launching its own investigation now into the massive Minnesota fraud scheme. And SBA Administrator Kelly Loeffler is announcing, quote, despite Governor Walz's best efforts to obstruct, SBA continues to work to expose abuse and hold perpetrators accountable, full stop. She is here with me now in studio live. Thank you so much and good morning. Good to see you. I know you're digging into this. We remember hearing about stories of fraud with all of this COVID-free money that was given away, especially during the Biden administration when the Democrats were in power. Talk to me about how this is different, because I don't think it's that easy to commit fraud. I mean, someone has to be explaining to these people how you do it.
That's right, Aisha. This looks like a complex scheme that was set up to defraud taxpayers, our federal government, of needed funds that would have gone out during COVID for hungry families, for children, for small businesses. And so when I first heard of the billion-dollar corruption, my mind immediately went to PPP. And I said from day one when I came in, it's a new day at the SBA. We are going to crack down on the fraud that the Biden administration completely overlooked, swept under the rug for 4 years. And it wasn't that hard. Within 48 hours, we already found $1 million worth of fraud within the Minnesota Somali crime network. And we're going to continue to investigate and work with our federal law enforcement partners.
It's mind-blowing how much money is out there, taxpayer dollars, by the way, our money that we don't have a clue where it's at. This is Congresswoman Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, and she was on the other day on another network claiming that the fraud got out of control because this program via the government didn't have the right guardrails. Watch.
Can you shed any light on why the fraud got so out of control in Minnesota?
I think what happened is that, you know, when you have these kind of new programs that are designed to help people, you're oftentimes relying on third parties to be able to facilitate. And I just think that a lot of the COVID programs that were set up, they were set up so quickly that a lot of the guardrails did not get created.
Let you take a bite at that.
Well, Aisha, that word salad cannot distract from the fact that this is exactly what the Democratic Socialist welfare state is. It's massive fraud where officials look the other way, enrich themselves for it, and then hardworking Minnesotans, hardworking Americans pay for it in the form of taxes, and they have their benefits taken away from them on their backs. So this is why we're cracking down. We're drawing a line and saying you will never get government benefits again when you defraud the government.
You know, on that note, Kim Strassel wrote a great piece in the Wall Street Journal. This is her column about the lesson in this Minnesota fraud scheme. She writes, we need to move many people off government dependency, not just for moral and societal reasons, but because government has an obligation to taxpayers and to the truly needy to right size and return to a system that can function. What do you think of that?
Well, Kim's exactly right. And I think one of the interesting things about the Democrat shutdown that hurt families and small businesses for the last 43 days was the exposure of how broad the welfare state is. And that's why the Working Families Tax Cut is so important. It includes work requirements for receiving welfare. And we have to reform welfare because it's going to be paid for on the backs of hardworking Americans if we don't. And that's what's exciting about the One Big Beautiful Bill is not only are we reforming welfare to encourage people to get back in the workforce, but the small businesses I talk to every single day whose top concern is a skilled workforce. We bring people back into being citizens, the dignity of work and being part of something instead of expecting a handout. And that's what we are drawing a hard line on here and saying it needs to be available for the people who need it, not for the people who want a financial lifestyle.
The scary part is, I mean, this is probably way bigger than what we can even imagine right now.
You're absolutely right.
Kelly, good to see you.
So
Thanks for coming in. Thanks for coming in the studio.
I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Brighteon Channel.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hot
Democratic Party with socialism never works. Just doesn't work. There's always corruption. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the complete multivitamin. The complete multivitamin will help with proper enzymatic activity so your cells will perform better. These multivitamins are cofactors for enzymes, so the conformation changes, it's more effective, so the cells will perform properly. It's really important to take. It's a foundation for my anti-aging protocol. It's easy to digest. This multivitamin, super easy to digest. So take it every day. And get the probiotics, either the veggie cap version or the powdered version. The powdered version is in my hand right now. I take probiotics every day as part of the foundation. Take it with the multivitamin. With a good probiotic, you're improving your gut biome. You're improving the absorption of your nutrients, revving up your metabolism, improving your brain function, improving your skin. So please go to my store and get the probiotics. It's really important for proper health. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. Okay, let's listen into Hugh Hewitt.
Throw it as hard as you want. Go on. Watching it zip away feels like it might just keep going, right? Nope, here it comes. This thing's a total...
Morning, glory, and evening grace, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Welcome. Scott Johnson is one of the founders of Powerline blog. He is also the first mover on the Feeding Our Future scandal, the first reporter to dig into the Feeding Our Future scandal in Minnesota. And now it's blown up and it's everywhere. And I don't know if anyone's paying any attention to the fact that Scott Johnson had the goods. Scott, how are you, my friend?
Good to be with you. I'm great.
Would you walk the audience through how you got involved, when you got involved, and when you knew you had a massive story on your hands?
Q, you're giving me way too much credit. I've been, I would say, a member of the local press who has been covering what has turned into this enormous story since it burst into public view in January 2022, when a team of federal agents who flew in from all over the United States conducted raids all over the Twin Cities, the biggest such set of raids ever in the history of Minnesota, to scoop up evidence of the fraud. And the following September 2022, the then United States Attorney Andrew Luger called a press conference to announce 47 indictments in the case. And the case has really followed the contours that Andy Luger set forth then. Feeding Our Future was the sponsor of a number of sites, virtually all of which involved operations run by Somalis, all of which were running fraudulent operations, collecting millions of dollars in money for fraudulent charges. They claim to be feeding millions of students. This is what I want to tell your audience. This case is nearly 4 years old, but it burst into a national story on account of a City Journal column by Chris Rupo and Ryan Thorpe last month. And it got President Trump's attention immediately. But it's a very old story. And the substance of it is a story of an open door to fraud that a number of mostly Somali perpetrators entered.
Do you think, a number of questions. First of all, I did not know it was 4 years old. That's remarkable. Have there been any follow-on indictments beyond the first round of indictments?
Yes, we're up to, the original set announced in September 2022 was 47. We're up to 87 indictments, but Hugh, perhaps more significantly than that, we're up to 50 guilty pleas and 7 convictions following 2 trials. So this is a very old case. It has been investigated. It continues to be investigated because the Feeding Our Future case opened a window onto another set of frauds. The Feeding Our Future case involved something like $300 million in fraud. The follow-on cases, according to the chief prosecutor of these cases, Joe Thompson, amounts to billions, and President Trump likes to put that in caps, billions of dollars of fraud in Minnesota, so-called waivered Medicaid programs. Two of those.
We lost you there for a second.
Okay. We expect additional indictments. I'm not sure where I froze, but we expect additional indictments in these Medicaid fraud cases that Chief Prosecutor Joe Thompson says will amount to billions in caps, as President Trump likes to put it, billions of dollars.
Now, Scott, in terms of, I don't want to profile anyone, but if we've got 86 indictments, we have a number that are Somali or Somali Americans, and we have a number that are not. What's the breakdown?
Well, there's one white woman who ran the Feeding Our Future sponsor. There are, I think, 80 Somalis among the perpetrators. I think the breakdown is about 90% Somali. The non-Somali perpetrators are mostly Ethiopian. So it's really a story of immigrant fraud. And Amy Bach, who was the ringleader, was tried in the second of these cases that went to trial. She's the person who ran Feeding Our Future. And what she saw is that she could collect all these willing fraudsters among the Somali community. She could cry racism when anyone began to ask questions. And that's what kept her going for a couple of years.
So what would they apply?
Ladies over 180 pounds. Start your 7-minute indoor walking routine. Of course, all deep house.
So what would they apply for, and what would they get under false pretenses?
This was the program that was loosened in the COVID era to feed these primary high school students during the COVID era. So they loosened the regulations to allow just about anyone to serve meals to needy students. And as a result, everyone and his mother, whom Amy Bach recruited, accepted the invitation to commit fraud. And she opened the barn door and the money just flowed out. The political story is a story of political corruption, among Tim Walz and Keith Ellison, who just kept the door open. Amy Bach was very effective at keeping things going so long as she could cry racism and scare off her Democratic friends.
Now, I heard Governor Walz explain that when you have a generous state, it attracts criminals. I thought that was a rather extraordinary excuse for what is systemic corruption. It looks to me like it's just a poorly run state that criminals who are everywhere decide to take advantage of. In terms of scale, California had a vast unemployment benefits scam, billions and billions of dollars in unemployment benefits to prisoners because of COVID. Do you think this one, in terms of pro rata or pro person fraud, is greater in Minnesota? Is this the biggest scam?
The United States attorney who charged these cases was Andy Lugar, and on his way out of office, he sat down for a television interview in which he said that Minnesota has the country's biggest fraud problem. And I would cite, he's a very knowledgeable guy. I would rely on his estimation of what's going on here.
So is there anyone in the state legislature who has raised a question about Governor Walz's appointees who are supposed to be supervising this program?
That's certainly been the case among several Republican legislators, and Governor Walz he's running for a third term in office next year. He's announced that he's going to seek a Rooseveltian third term.
My energy
is that great. And a number of the Republican legislators are House Speaker Lisa Damon and House Chairman of a new fraud committee that Speaker Damon set up, Kristen Robbins, have been hammering this fraud issue for a while. Just about everything Governor Walz says about it is false. See, when I say this is an old story, because the Rufo Thorpe column kind of highlighted, I think someone is reading like a terrorism element. These aren't terrorism cases; they're really theft, fraud cases. But in my view, I lost my train of thought.
Well, let me ask you, are you annoyed by the attention it's getting now, or are you annoyed by the fact that it's not being represented correctly?
To you, it's had a destructive effect on the people who are doing the work to investigate and prosecute these cases for this reason. Everyone and his mother is demanding that the authorities here conduct an investigation. I wanted to say that I wrote about Governor Walz's nonfeasance in the Wall Street Journal column the day after Kamala Harris selected him as her running
really
last year. You know, so you can look up that column and the day after Harris selected Walz in the Wall Street Journal, and you can see I highlighted Governor Walz's extremely misleading statements about the case in that column. The demands on the local prosecutors to investigate these cases are farcical. It's a political, silly season. And that's what I wanted to highlight for your audience. These people here have done the work. They have investigated the case. One of the star witnesses at the two trials is an FBI forensic accountant who led a team who has traced virtually every dollar that could be traced has been traced. And she was a star witness at these trials, extremely credible witness. I'd like your viewers to know that that's the case. The investigation has been done. Now, the Feeding Our Future case opened the door onto these other Medicaid fraud cases, which are in the process of being investigated and prosecuted. But, and it features some of the same cast. That's how the door was opened. Some of the same cast.
Do you have confidence in your local prosecutors? We got less than a minute, Scott. Do you have confidence in the people who are prosecuting these cases?
The prosecutor of the Feeding Our Future and related cases is Joe Thompson. He's one of the best trial attorneys I've ever seen. He is outstanding, and he has been extremely accessible to the local staff.
We'll keep coming back to Scott Johnson. I had no idea it was 4 years old, but Scott.
So this thing was almost swept under the rug. If he won the ticket with Harris, if Harris won the presidency, this would have been swept under the rug. Amazing. Amazing. All right, let's listen to Fox News about this.
Massive fraud scandal unfolding in Minnesota.
Before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the ashwagandha. This will help to control your cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels, bring down inflammation, help your immune system, and help you with your cardiovascular system. It's really important to take every day. And turmeric. Turmeric will bring down inflammation by lowering your pro-inflammatory cytokines and soak up free radicals. That helps your immune system and also your cardiovascular system. You can stack these together to get a synergistic effect. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Wake-up call on America's broken welfare system. As more details come to light about scams that bilk taxpayers out of what could be more than $1 billion. Yes, they sound like Dr. Evil. It's $1 billion. Welcome to a new hour of America Reports. I'm John Roberts in Washington. That's real money, Sam.
That is real money. Good to be with you on this Friday, John. I'm Sandra Smith in New York. So one startling example sticking out concerns a program to help recovering addicts find stable housing. Initial estimates for the housing program was for just under $3 million annually. But an indictment shows grifters fraudulently billed Medicaid more than $100 million last year alone. Garrett Tenney is live on this out of Chicago for us. What do you have, Garrett?
Well, Sandra, several of the whistleblowers in Minnesota have told state lawmakers that by the time these investigations are through, they believe the actual size of this fraud, the amount of taxpayer dollars that has been stolen, could be higher than $8 billion. We are already seeing some of that. 2 days into the Small Business Administration's investigation, Secretary Kelly Loeffler says the agency has uncovered at least $1 million in PPP fraud. And the state itself is now looking into the possibility of fraud in another Medicaid program. Minnesota's Department of Human Services is now pausing the issuing of new licenses for disability service providers over concerns of fraud after an explosion in the number of applications for new licenses over the past 5 years, going up 283%, while the number of people needing those services only increased by 25%. Governor Tim Walz, who is up for re-election, is under fire for all of this happening under his watch, but he says they have investigated every claim of fraud that's come in, something whistleblowers dispute, and says the state is taking the steps it needs to keep it from happening again.
We've acknowledged that this is serious, needs to stop. It is stopping. People are continuing to go to prison. I think the good news for Minnesotans to know when that 90-day pause is over and the third-party audits are done, we will have a better picture than we've ever had, which I think is really good.
While all of these investigations are getting underway, Republican lawmakers are sounding the alarm about Minnesota's new paid leave program launching next month that allows anyone in the state, regardless of their citizenship.
The state should have had proper procedures for the auditing annually or quarterly, maybe even monthly, depending on the size of the grants. Didn't happen. He allowed this to happen. He's either completely stupid, which is highly probable, or he was complicit.
Status to take 12 weeks of paid leave a year, paid for by the state. GOP lawmakers say the program is ripe for abuse.
It was written so broadly that you can take advantage of it and abuse it, and no one's going to come looking for you. The taxpayers put in a bunch of money to launch the whole thing. So this is going to be the next horrible thing coming out of Minnesota.
And it's important to remember the FBI is also still investigating the massive fraud schemes there. This morning, Attorney General Pam Bondi said there are going to be a lot more arrests on this coming. Sandra?
Okay, thanks for keeping track of it for us. Garrett Tenney in Chicago on that for us. John?
All right, let's dig deeper into all of this by bringing in Texas Republican Congressman Brandon Gill, a member of the House Oversight Committee, which is now investigating fraud in Minnesota's social services system. Congressman, good to have you with us this Friday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. So there are plenty of accusations that Governor Tim Walz turned a blind eye to this. And the Wall Street Journal sums it all up this way, quote, Democrats won't acknowledge fraud because they want more Americans on the dole. Yep. Welfare is central to their political business model. Yep. Republicans who make this scandal about immigration are missing the point and missing an opportunity to educate Americans about the entitlement state grift. What do you say to that?
Well, I would say, first of all, that I agree that the problem is that the welfare state has gotten far too big with almost virtually very few real eligibility checks or anti-fraud provisions. But I do think that there is clearly an immigration component to this as well. You know, the famous economist Milton Friedman famously remarked that you can't have both open borders and a welfare state. And for decades, the Democrats have been trying to have both. They've invited as many people as they possibly could from all over the globe into our communities, including tens of thousands of Somalians into Minnesota, and then opened up the welfare state to provide benefits with almost no anti-fraud provisions whatsoever. And this is the obvious result. We knew this would happen, and yet Democrats are pushing this for political gain.
So still sticking with the Wall Street Journal, Kim Cottrell is a great observer of the political conditions, not only here in Washington, D.C., but across.
I think that over time, we're going to find out that Mondani is going to do something similar in New York City, and there's going to be a lot of corruption in his administration. It's going to get worse.
The country. She writes the lessons of Minnesota's fraud. She says, quote, Minnesota raises to alarm level a separate need for reset. The system itself, the government machine, is broken. It's heaving duplicative federal state programs, awash in forms and bureaucracies and ancient mainframes, has already suffered Soviet-style collapse. The system serves more as a cash machine for criminals than a safety net for the needy. I mean, reforming the system is going to take years. So what do we do in the meantime?
Well, I'll tell you what House Republicans are working on and what we already have done in the president's tax bill, which he signed into law earlier this year, was to start to right-size the welfare state and say, introduce basic ideas like if you are receiving Medicaid or food stamps, you need either be working or seeking work. We tightened up eligibility requirements. We added in provisions that means we need to check more often whether people who are receiving benefits actually should be receiving benefits. The reality is whenever you have fraud, especially on the scale that we're seeing here, that is money that is taken out of hardworking American taxpayers' wallets and put into the hands of criminals. That's absolutely grotesque. And that's stuff that we need to be laser focused on fixing right now.
So President Trump is really incensed about this. He had very harsh words for the people who were involved in this, as well as some other members of the Somali community in Minnesota. This is what he said yesterday. Listen.
We're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These are people that work. These are people that say, let's go. Come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain.
Congressman, what do you make of what the president said there?
Well, I think the president is pointing out a basic truth that we shouldn't be importing tens of thousands or more people from low trust societies where this type of fraud and corruption is common, and it is common in Somalia. And we've got to recognize that whenever we import cultures that accept this type of behavior, we're going to see that type of behavior right here in America. And again, that means taking money from hardworking American citizens and giving it to fraudsters and criminals. That's because of open borders, it's because of mass migration, and it's because of a welfare system that is so large that there's no possible way that you can check that the people who are receiving benefits actually should be receiving benefits.
And if Kelly Loeffler is correct, this could be just the tip of a very big iceberg. Congressman, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and more.
What's going on with Larry Summers?
That's what we asked for.
Larry Summers, a former Treasury Secretary and former president of Harvard University, has been banned for life from American Economic Association. This is a major move from a professional group with more than 17,000 members, and it marks one of the most severe disciplinary actions the organization has ever taken. The announcement came Tuesday when the AEA confirmed it had accepted Summers' voluntary resignation, but chose to go further by imposing a lifetime prohibition. That means he can no longer attend events, speak at conferences, or play any role in the group's journals or research activities. The AEA says Summers' behavior, prescribed in publicly released communications, violated the basic standard of integrity expected within profession. The decision follows new details about Summers' relationship with the late Ph.D. A House committee released years of email exchange between the two men, revealing conversations that included sexist comments and moments where Summers asked Exxon for personal and even romantic advice. These disclosures added new pressure on institutions connected to Summers.
I'm going to stop the video here because the accent is hard to hear over the mic. All right, so let's take a look at another video here. You know what? I think I want to listen to this. White House releases national security strategy report.
As President Trump touts his push for peace, there's a new Reagan Defense survey showing a majority of Americans support the...
Did I play this already? I might have played that already. Let me just replay it.
As President Trump touts his push for peace, there's a new Reagan Defense survey showing a majority of Americans support the U.S. being more engaged on the world stage. 64%, strong number there on the survey released this week. The president and CEO of the Reagan Library is David Trulio, and Fox National Security correspondent Jennifer Griffin. Both join me here in Simi Valley. Great to see you guys. Another year, and it's so interesting to see how the world changes in 12 months. Jen, last night, the White House released its report on the national security strategy. What did you find significant?
Well, it's very significant, Bill. This is the premier document that will drive basically all of the defense decisions that we'll be talking about here today. What's different, this is really what is being called a Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, going back to James Monroe of 1823, which really focuses more on the Western Hemisphere and malign influence in the Western Hemisphere and warns any potential adversaries about sort of operating in the Western Hemisphere. That is a big shift from past national security strategies, including from the first Trump term, which focused more on great power competition, on the pivot to Asia, on Beijing and Moscow. The focus is on the Caribbean, Latin America, and there is mention of China, not of Beijing per se. It lowers the temperature and tone, I think, in terms of China. It says we will certainly keep the status quo in Taiwan. Very little mention of the Middle East. Says that ending the war in Ukraine and preventing it from spreading to Europe is in the country's national interest, but a very soft tone against Russia and Putin.
Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, is expected here on Saturday. Lucas Tomlinson is going to do the interview, and we'll see what sort of news he makes as well. David, how do you react to this?
Look, this is a super consequential time for the country. The threat environment is very complex and dynamic. Our Reagan Institute survey shows that Americans broadly support an engaged U.S. in the context of peace through strength. As Jen points out, the focus on the Western Hemisphere is important. We see drugs and migration issues as being key issues the administration has dealt with. So it makes sense. Also, the national security strategy talks about reindustrialization. That's a major priority for the administration, and it'll be a major topic here at the Defense Forum.
We've been coming out here for more than 10 years together. I think the numbers that came out in your survey are higher than I can remember, actually. Look at this one here. More likely to achieve peace when the U.S. has the strongest military. 71% of Americans you surveyed agree with that, David. What's that suggest?
Look, despite a lot of talk about division, which you'd especially pick up if you're listening to the mainstream or establishment media, Americans broadly believe that the most fundamental role of government is to protect them, and they want a strong military and a strong national security to ensure they're safe.
Jan, here's another one. Which country do you see as the greatest threat to the U.S.? I think you would guess China. I think the number for Russia is higher than many people would think. They're 48% for China, 26% for Russia.
I think what was significant was seeing how many MAGA Republicans wanted the U.S. to show leadership and remain engaged in the world. It came down to 79%. So of that first statistic you gave, MAGA Republicans still want the U.S. engaged in the world. The other interesting stat was in terms of support for Ukraine. A majority of Americans want to send weapons to Ukraine, including 65% who want to send Tomahawks to Kyiv.
Okay, so we'll see how that goes out of the White House and the strategy there. You mentioned Venezuela and the focus on the Western Hemisphere. Here we go. Military force against suspected drug traffickers. You found that more than 60% of Americans approve of that. At 62%, you're just shy of 2/3. What's that tell you, David?
Tells me that the American people understand how devastating the drug epidemic has been, and they're crying out for action, right? So this is a huge issue. When you look at the number of people who die in this country every year as a result of drugs, it's multiple 9/11s every year. So that's devastating communities across this country. And it's not surprising, therefore, that there's support for vigorous action.
Well, I think it's important to point out, though, that the poll was done before this controversial strike that has gotten so much attention on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, we'll see how that changes, too. Jen will be with you all weekend. David, thanks for being a great host. Okay?
It means a lot that you're here. Thank you.
I love the setting yet again. Okay. Thank you both.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilney.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the lignans. This will help your immune system and your endocrine system bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals. When you do this on a regular basis, you're slowing down the aging process and getting healthy. Take lignans every day. All right. With that, let's listen into CNN.
The Synchrony Premier World MasterCard. Earn 2% cash back on every purchase, every category, with no cap on how much.
So CNN doesn't like Trump saying that Somalis that come here that don't want to assimilate and want to just fleece Americans are garbage. They'll find a Somali American who backed Trump. Now, back meaning what? Somali American? We don't have hyphenated Americans. You're either an American or not. There's no such thing as Somali hyphenated American. I don't know what that means. You're either an American or you're a Somali. Which one is it? Backed? Does that mean you're a citizen or you're not? Are you here illegally or you're not? Or were you born here? Are you a citizen that can vote? What does this mean, backed? So we'll find out. But Somali American, so they'll find someone, they'll say that they supported Trump, whatever that means. But now, Trump is a bad guy because he said Somalis are garbage. Because they stop the sentence and they don't fully take it in the full context. The ones that are causing havoc in this country, they're here illegally or they're not here illegally and they're fleecing American taxpayers. Of course they're garbage. Anyone that is frauding the government by billions of dollars is garbage. Doesn't matter if you're a white collar crime or blue collar crime. It doesn't matter. But let's see, Trump's always bad here. Always bad according to CNN. Al Jazeera did something similar. Wait a minute. CNN and Al Jazeera did the same thing. Amazing.
Somalia are not garbage. That's not a biased statement. That's not partisan. That's not anti-Trump statement. It's not a political statement. It is simple, factual, a human statement. But let's sit with this for just a moment. That word, garbage, and think about what it means. Garbage is something you don't want.
What was the context that Trump was saying? You're coming here to defraud the country. You're coming here not to assimilate. You're coming here to destroy. Yeah, they are garbage.
Is something disposable. Garbage is something you throw away, you discard. Garbage is worthless. Garbage is how the president of the United States characterizes Somali people. All Somalis.
That's not true.
That includes
That's
Somali
not true.
Americans.
That's not what he said.
The entire nation of Somalia is garbage. And this is not overstating it. It's actually worth hearing again exactly how the president put it on 2 occasions this week.
I wouldn't be proud to have the largest Somalian. Look at their nation. Look how bad their nation is. It's not even a nation. It's just people walking around killing each other. The Somalians should be out of here. They destroyed our country. And all they do is complain, complain, complain. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you. Somebody said, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks. And we don't want them in our country. We're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. They complain and do nothing but.
I am sure there are Somalis that are American that have amalgamated into the culture. But he's making a strong point here. Look at what's happening with Europe. Unfettered immigration, where you have lots of illegals coming in, will disrupt your society. On top of the fraudulent activity that was happening in Minnesota. So why should we let in people that are taking precious taxpayer money? Again, we aren't supporting our veterans. We're not supporting our elderly. But we'll support Somalis? That's just wrong. And let's just face it. Certain countries are shitholes. And there's a reason why they're shitholes. Because of the people. They're not willing to move out of the Stone Age. They're not willing to adopt the Enlightenment. Some people are the cause of the reason why their country is in tatters.
bitch. We don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's applause at the end.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Wishing you a very happy and off holiday because right now Mint Mobile is offering you to get the 50%.
Yeah, that's applause at the end there. Well, now this. A new ICE operation launched this week is targeting undocumented Somali immigrants in Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota. The Twin Cities are home to...
They're targeting undocumented. They're targeting undocumented Somalis. They're illegal. They're here illegally. Hello? Undocumented is illegal.
The people from the East African country. The president's rhetoric and actions are being called xenophobic, racist. It's also a complete contrast from how the president felt about Somalis when he needed their votes.
Minnesota is home to a large Somali population, which has historically voted Democrat. But we're hearing more and more, there are many reports about them supporting your candidacy this time around. But why should they?
Because they want safety, they want security. In many ways, they have the worst crime numbers in terms of crimes against, and they want to be safe. They want security just like everybody else. And I've heard that. I've heard I'm doing very well in that community, and in the Black community also. I mean, generally, it's an honor.
Well, my next guest is a Somali American, specifically one of those Somali American Republicans. You see there on the right side of the screen, who gave their support to the president. He was at this July 2024 rally in St. Cloud, Minnesota. You can see him at this event with Minnesota Somali leaders giving their endorsement in November of last year, right before the election.
I'm assuming he is an American citizen, either naturalized or born here. I'm not sure what, but let's assume he's an American citizen.
Salman Biki is with us now. He's a business owner and a former GOP candidate for the Minnesota State House. Salman, thank you for being with me. Quote, we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage. The president was talking about Somali immigrants. You are Somali American.
Okay, so let's define what garbage means in the eyes of Trump. Ones that don't want to amalgamate to American culture. And ones that are coming here illegally. That's what he's considering garbage. They're coming here illegally. There's a big constituency that's illegal. And then there's another constituency that are here legally, either through birth or through immigration legally. That's not assimilating. So if you keep on bringing in, quote, Trump's garbage that he's talking about, you're going to lose cohesion within the society. Just look at what's happening in Europe. Unfettered immigration leads to instability of the culture. And what about the $8 billion fraud that's taking place in Minnesota?
What's your reaction to what you heard from the president this week?
Well, it was very dehumanizing and it's very unpresidential coming from the commander-in-chief of the United States to dehumanize and to dehumanize a whole entire community. By calling them garbage.
Is all of Somali's garbage? No. But what is Trump really focused on here? There are certain people that will plug into the Enlightenment, will plug into democracy, will plug into capitalism. Others don't. It's not part of their culture. Those are the types of people we need to keep out because they're a cancer. All right? Not every cell in the body should just run rampant. You need to have borders. You can't have certain cells in one tissue move to another area and start to divide, it's called cancer. All right? You got to have good borders. Or Robert Frost, good fences make good neighbors. Don't bring people to the country that won't assimilate.
And this is not acceptable by any means.
You posted on social media, I, Salman Fiki, formally announcing that I'm ending all collaboration with the Republican Party. Have you ended your support for the president? Tell me more about what led you to your decision.
Well,
my energy bill dropped from $150 to $50 by doing this. My friends laughed at me when I spent $49 on a power saver device that could cut my energy bill in half.
The reason why this decision came about is because it was long. It was a long.
Come on, get it out.
As it was dragging from ever since the president got elected. So, and I was monitoring his performance in many fronts, and he seems not delivering on the promises that he promised the country or the people that actually voted for him. So, and the last that broke the camel back was when he called Somali community as a garbage.
Do you regret your vote?
Some of the Somalis that aren't, that are not assimilating to the country, that want to bring their culture that is defunct into our culture, yeah, that's a problem. What about the illegals? What about the illegals? Forget about if they're Somali or not. It doesn't matter. They're here illegally. They need to get out. Period. There should be no debate about this. But the problem is that you have a lot of people that are coming from nefarious backgrounds, nefarious countries that can cause societal havoc. Again, it goes back to the pillars: God, country, and family. If you're bringing people that do not have an affinity to the country, aren't willing to have that oath to the country when they naturalize, why are they here? Why are they here? The United States is not Somalia. They don't have a right to just make America Somalia. It's a defunct country. Why'd you leave it if you loved it so much? Assimilation is the core of this problem here. And many of these people don't want to assimilate. They want the benefits. They want the socialism. And because he's a politician in a constituency that's Somalian, he has to move away from the Republican Party. He has to distance himself from Trump so he can politically survive. So this is about egoism, or is it really about some sort of core noble belief? Some core noble principle? It's egoism.
No, I don't regret my vote that I voted for Trump because where I see politics, I see politics through conservative prism, and I still have conservative values, and I see politics through that lens. But I withdraw all connection connections from the Minnesota GOP, from the Republican Party for not standing up for the Somali community.
Yeah, let me actually play something from the
I don't
Minnesota
understand the Somali community. What is he talking? What is this Somali-American? I don't understand that. Are you an American or not? There is no such thing as a hyphenated American.
Tom, remember, this is after the president's remarks.
Do you realize that, it's not that all Somalis are committing crimes, but 80% of the crimes being committed in the Twin Cities in Minnesota are being committed by Somalis?
His office referenced reporting on pandemic relief fraud, but what's your response to the congressman there saying that 80% of the crimes being committed in the Twin Cities in Minnesota are from Somali Americans?
That's false and unsubstantiated claim. Somalis in the Twin Cities are 80,000 to 100,000 people live in the Twin Cities. So, and the Twin Cities combined are 2 million people roughly. So the 100,000 people cannot commit 80% of the crimes in the Twin Cities. So
No, that's not what he said. Wait. Maybe I misunderstood. What he said is the crimes that are committed, 80% of them are from Somali or Somali Americans, whatever. But the thing here, 80% of the crimes, you don't have 2 million crimes a year, dude. So he doesn't even know his math. Unless I misunderstood what the guy said. 80% of the crimes are Somalian. Now let's just rewind. Hopefully we just rewind this just a little bit. Let's see what this guy said.
That's false and unsubstantiated claim.
Sometimes being relief
Committed by. Do you realize that, it's not that all Somalis are committing crimes, but 80% of the crimes being committed in the Twin Cities in Minnesota are being committed by Somalis?
His office
Not all Somalis are committing crimes. 80% of the crimes are Somali. Think about that for a second. Now let's listen to the Somali American.
reporting on pandemic relief fraud, but what's your response to the congressman there saying that 80% of the crimes being committed in the Twin Cities in Minnesota are from Somali Americans?
That's false and unsubstantiated claim. Somalis in the Twin Cities are 80,000 to 100,000.
So 100,000 as a population. Okay. Compared to 2 million. Okay.
The Twin Cities. So, and the Twin Cities combined are 2 million people roughly. So the 100,000 people cannot commit 80% of.
He obviously doesn't know statistics because he said 80% of the crimes are Somali, and it was related to the fraud, this recent fraud. He's not even answering the question. Now he's either stupid or he doesn't want to really look at the truth.
Crimes in the Twin Cities. So there's false statements, and and he's known for.
Why didn't doesn't the anchor at CNN understand statistics? Oh, they're a journalist. They don't know math. 80% of the crimes, and this was in the context of the fraud with the nonprofits, were done by Somalis. But even if you just say just crime in general, which is not what the previous individual said, but this guy is not paying attention to what the statistics are. And he's running for office? This is the problem that we have in America. Bunch of dumbasses. And here, Chrome Dome, anchor on CNN, isn't willing to say, well, wait a minute. It's 80% of the crimes, not 80% of the population. Those two totally different things.
Accusing the Somali community for some false accusations, such as claiming that Somalis sending money to Al-Shabaab and things like that. That is very false statements.
Salman, let me play something for you that you said about the Republican Party. This is during the 2024 campaign.
Okay.
People would. Adobe Microsoft Studio is all real. What can PDF spaces with AI do? Writing research, dropping off natural insights from your docs. You get your things, you can tell you here. What you do, build from there. Now you can do that with the all new Alphabet. People would accuse the Republican Party as or paint the Republican Party as a kind of a really racist or something, but is contrary to that claim, and is very welcoming to paint the picture that the Republican Party is a racist state is absolutely actual and far from the truth.
Do you still believe that today?
Well, I still believe that majority of the people that vote Republican are not racist, but the president in his comments about Somalis and other races are racist, and it ignites the racist aspects of the party, so we cannot do a generalization to the whole entire Republican Party, but some of them are racist, yes.
You said at that event at the Minnesota State Capitol that you were backing President Trump for one of the reasons was safety for the Somali American community in Minnesota. We've reported on the new ICE mission in the Twin Cities. Do you feel safe today?
I mean, I feel safe, sort of. I feel safe, but I don't know what I'm gonna encounter later on. Yeah, there's ICE raids going around the cities. They were in my town, like today. They were in my town, Burnsville. Yeah, but I haven't encountered anything as of right now. But I've seen many people that actually got raided and it got taken away by ICE. Yes, and I fear for them. There's a lot of Somali community. There's a lot of Somali families that actually Somali community. There's a lot of Somali communities that are actually fearful of those roots, and I get those and I sympathize with them, and the reason why I'm speaking against those remarks by the president is he's stoking hate and fear into the community.
Salman, thank you. I thank you for your time this morning.
The bottom line is, you have people that were fleecing taxpayers, taking advantage of the system. You got Omar, that is a major problem, that's a representative in Congress that hates America. You have Somalis that are coming here illegally. There's a problem here. It needs to get fixed. Either assimilate or you get out. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. get the C60. You can get it in avocado oil, MCT coconut oil, or extra virgin olive oil. You can get it in a 2 ounce, 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. It is cheaper per ounce at the higher ounce configuration. Take a teaspoon a day every day. Soak up free radicals. It will help to improve your cardiovascular health by reducing plaque formation. When you soak up free radicals, you're stopping the cascade of building up plaque. It'll also help with your brain function because your neurons will be healthier. Soaking up free radicals at the neuron level will allow for more neurotransmitters to be created, healthier mitochondria, more energy, and therefore your neuroplasticity will be positive and you'll think faster and have better memory. In addition, your immune system and your endocrine system will improve. I've been taking C60 every day since 2016. So please go to my store, get the avocado oil C60, MCT coconut oil C60, or the extra virgin olive oil C60. Take a teaspoon a day every day. You'll start noticing the benefits within 2 months, and over 1 year of taking it, you will look younger. All right? You do a compare and contrast before, after. You will look younger after taking this for a year. Now, couple it with a holistic approach. Proper diet, proper exercise, drink filtered water, stay away from processed foods. Be mindful of your sugar content in your foods. Add some spirituality or mindfulness to get your central nervous system into parasympathetic. And when you do that, you'll slow down the aging process. Make sure you do proper exercise, some resistance training, cardiovascular training, balancing, stretching exercise is super important. Be a little bit more on the resistance training than the cardio. You'll be healthier by doing that. And learn new things. Get that brain activated. Read and write and talk to people in the real world. And you'll slow down the aging process. Please go to my store, get the C60. It is 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. So that's the show for today. Thank you for listening. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Help support the work that I do. All these videos are for free. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.